police safety.
I'm absolutely terrified. And so is my auntie, and my mum. My little girl is wondering what the hell's going on, but I've been to the doctors, I'm on antidepressants, I'm on sleeping tablets because I can't sleep. I feel like I've just had a newborn baby again, and that's how I'm sleeping.
The Ministry of Justice says any decision to allow community leave is only taken after a full risk assessment by medical staff, and the safety of victims and their families is paramount. A future Labour government would make teachers in England apply for a licence every few years in order to work in state schools. The party says the move would help to improve standards. In 2012, the coalition gave heads the ability to sack underperforming staff within a term and introduced a new assessment regime. Supporters of Mark Duggan, whose shooting by police in London led to rioting, are holding a vigil in Birmingham later. Earlier this week, an inquest jury concluded that he'd been lawfully killed. People are expected to gather outside West Midlands Police Headquarters, whilst the Duggan family hold their own vigil at Tottenham Police Station in London this afternoon. Jeff Dexter, a community activist in Birmingham who doesn't agree with the verdict, told BBC WM today's about remembering Mark.
But this weekend, Mark Duggan's family are organising a vigil in Tottenham. So encouraging people to go to that, but for people that can't make it, we'll be holding a solidarity event and vigil with the family outside Lloyd House Police Headquarters.
Football now, and West Bromwich Albion head to Southampton later with their new boss Pepe Mel looking on from the stands before taking full control next week. Birmingham City's 10-match unbeaten run in the Championship is sure to come under close scrutiny at Brighton. Wolves take on Preston, another meeting of two League One promotion challengers at Molineux. Walsall are a point outside the playoffs in League One as they make the trip to Tranmere this afternoon. Striker Milan Lalkovic, whose loan from Chelsea has been extended for the rest of the season, says he hopes to add many more to his tally of 4 goals for the Saddlers so far.
Yeah, hopefully I score more important goals because that's what I wanted to do, be an important player, win games and that. So hopefully I will do more in the second half of the season.
Well, we'll have full coverage of this afternoon's football here on BBC WM from 2, with our build-up starting at midday with Adrian Goldberg sitting in for Daz Hale on early kick-off. Taking a look at the weather, dry and sunny with light winds, highs of 8 Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit. Staying dry tonight but turning cold, lows down to -2, 28 Fahrenheit. Sunday's looking cold to start with sunny spells and showers. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The voice. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
They have kids and they want somebody else to keep them.
Social services shouldn't exist.
I know quite a few people that have had pay cuts in their wages just to hang on to their job.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Good morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6. It's a packed show this morning, lots to talk about. Well, we've been talking about the story you heard in the news there, convicted killer being allowed unsupervised leave from a mental health hospital in Birmingham. Well, how do you feel about that? His family don't want him out. 30 years since Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood was banned by the BBC. We'll be talking in that and getting your memories of some of your favourite banned songs. But to start with, should we lay off people on benefits? Two big stories in the news at the moment. This Benefit Street programme that I've not seen. If you've seen it, I'd love to hear from you. And also this incredible story of Stephanie Bottrill from Kingshurst. We'll talk about that more in a second.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 009956.
BBC WM 95.6.
So, lots of ways to get in touch. You can email me, of course, iain.lee, iain.lee at bbc.co.uk. You can text me, 81333. Start your text WM, and that will, of course, get your message straight to me. The best way to do a show like this, I find, the best way is if you give me a phone call. OK, and I will give you the phone number in a second. I want you to go and get a pen and paper, and I will give you the phone number in a second. But the thing we're going to start off with today is benefits. Should we lay off people who are on benefits? Has it become acceptable to be prejudiced against them? Now, I've not seen this new programme, Benefit Street. So on Channel 4, I've read bits and pieces about it in the newspapers. What a surprise. The Daily Mail have gone bonkers about it. I've not seen it. If you've seen it, could you give me a call? Let me know what you make of it. What exactly happens? Is it as bad as people make out in the papers? 03453 009956. A slightly different number, dear listener. A slightly different number. 03. I've forgotten it now. Look, that's a terrible start. 03453 009956 is the telephone number. Now, the reason we're talking about this is, of course, Benefit Street, and we'll look at that in a second, but it's also emerged that the West Midlands grandmother who killed herself and left a letter blaming the government's spare room subsidy, well, she would have been exempt and eligible for a refund. Stephanie Bottrill from Kingshurst was due to leave her 3-bedroom home because her benefits were being cut as she had spare bedrooms. Well, a loophole means that working-age tenants in social housing who have occupied the same home continuously since 1996 are exempt from the tax. Well, David Jamieson is the leader of the Labour group on Solihull Council and joins on the line now. Morning, David.
Good morning.
This is a sad story, isn't it?
I think it's desperately sad, and the friends and relatives of Stephanie must be absolutely devastated by what's happened. I mean, firstly, she sadly committed suicide, and she gave in her suicide note as the reason was the bedroom tax and the pressure it was putting her under, one, having to pay more in rent which she couldn't afford, and two, being forced to move to somewhere where she was detached from her friends and her family. But then to find out now that due to the total incompetence of the government, that she wasn't actually eligible to pay this amount, really is the last straw for these people.
We always get criticised, well, I get criticised when I talk about this kind of thing on the BBC. It isn't a tax, is it? It's a spare room subsidy, and there is a difference.
What it is essentially is that the government brought in an order that if people had more bedrooms in a social housing, in a council house, they had more bedrooms than the government deemed they needed. And in the case of Stephanie, she had she was living at the house because the children had gone. There were 2 spare bedrooms. What they're saying is you shouldn't receive housing benefit for those bedrooms. I don't have too much problem with that. But what the government should be doing is actually making sure that there's appropriate alternatives for people to go to, which frankly there just aren't. And some people who are disabled, and it has affected a lot of women particularly people in their 40s and 50s, and people who are disabled and unable to work, what it's done, it hasn't taken into consideration that those people might want a spare room for somebody to come and help them occasionally, or someone to stay over to assist them. It just hasn't taken that sort of thing into consideration. So I think what the government has done is it's been in a stampede to say, look how tough we are on benefit, look how tough we are on people on low pay. And what they've forgotten is that there's some extremely sad cases there of people who are desperate and have very, very low income.
In theory, the spare room subsidy, the bedroom tax, it is a good idea, isn't it? In principle and in theory, because the aim is to get more houses or properties of suitable size for families that are living in accommodation that's too small for them.
If the government had brought in a scheme whereby there was an incentive for people to move from the larger properties that had more room than they actually needed, and gave them an incentive to move to smaller properties, and those smaller properties were being built and were being made available, then obviously it makes sense. In fact, many councils of all political persuasions have been doing this for quite a long time, paying an incentive for people to move. So that's the carrot. But what the government have done is just bought a big stick to beat people, to chase them out of their houses without making sure that there's alternatives for them to go to.
When Labour were in power, they didn't really do much to help, did they? Well, it's not a new problem, the lack of properties for families.
I think that's probably a fair criticism, that some of these schemes were under Labour councils whereby they were incentivising people to move. But there weren't enough houses built, and there wasn't enough new accommodation coming online. And that's probably happened for the last 20 or 30 years under all governments. And we need to see more appropriate housing coming into the whole of the West Midlands, really, to accommodate the new style of families. There's more people now who are living on their own. There's more people who are living longer, and very often just couples or single people living much longer, and the housing stock that we've got doesn't reflect that. It reflects more of the 1950s and 60s type of population that we had, and we need to make that change to ensure that people aren't put under this enormous pressure that they've been subjected to by the bedroom tax.
What can we do, David, to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Well, I think what the government should do is they should actually just draw a line for a start-off under the people who were in their property and receiving housing benefit before 1996. There will be hundreds, if not thousands, of them in the West Midlands, but I think that it's got to draw a line under that and say, we have made a dreadful mistake. They should pay compensation back to those people. When I say compensation, they should pay back the extra rent that they've paid, which was illegally taken from them, in my view. Then I think, really, the government should just relook at the idea of the bedroom tax. They should stop punishing people for being poor and on low income, and they should actually work the other way round and give people incentives to move, and then incentives for local authorities to build the right type of accommodation. So we're not in this position. I'm quite happy with people being moved from larger properties to smaller properties, but we shouldn't be actually forcing people out and dragging them out and putting them into places where they've never lived before, where they don't know the people round about, and where the accommodation is just inappropriate for their needs.
And finally, David, we're asking this morning, has it become acceptable to be prejudiced against people who are on benefits? What would you say to that?
I think that's what the government are doing. They're portraying all people on benefit as scroungers, and that is just manifestly not the case. A large number of people on benefits are very sad and deserving cases, people with disabilities, people with mental illness. That is probably the larger proportion of people. If there are people who are wrongly claiming benefits and are just not taking the opportunity of jobs when they're available, I'm quite happy for those people to be pressured back into work. But that's not the general profile of people on benefits. Many of them are people who are very deserving. And if you looked at each individual case, any sensible person would say that person deserved what they were getting. But there are those that are not, and that's where we've got to take action. We've got to be careful in taking that action. We don't harm and damage those people who are genuine cases.
David, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much. David Jamieson, leader of the Labour group on Solihull Council, talking about the sad story of Stephanie Bottrell from Kingshurst, who committed suicide. A grandmother killed herself. She left a letter blaming the government's spare room subsidy. Turns out she would have been exempt and eligible for a refund. We have a statement from Caroline Spellman MP, that's Stephanie's MP. We have been in touch with her. She can't come on the air today as she has constituency commitments this morning. She said she is willing to look again into the way Mrs Bottrell's case was handled if the family would like her to do it. So this opens up lots of things. I don't particularly want to talk about the spare room subsidy, the bedroom tax. Too much. We can talk about that. If you think it's a huge injustice, if you think it's incredibly outrageous, or if you think it's a cracking idea, actually, and that this one very sad incident isn't typical of what needs to be done to move people around into properties of appropriate size. If you want to talk about that, we can do. 03453 009956. But I guess today the main thrust is how we look at people who are on benefits, how we view people on benefits. Is there becoming is it becoming acceptable to look down on them and be prejudiced? 03453 009956. Christine, I will be with you in a second, but first let's have the travel. 9:15, let's get the travel with Liz Saul.
Good morning, Ian. As you head into the centre of Birmingham, there's a new road layout to contend with at Snow Hill Queensway and St Chad's, near to Snow Hill Station. Now, these temporary lights are also in place while the tram extension work continues around there, so just be a bit careful. Has been causing some congestion at times. A reminder that in the Catherine de Barnes area of Solihull, Henwood Lane is still blocked because of flooding between Berry Hall Lane and Barston Lane. Better news on the northbound A38 round the Orwells turn. That broken down vehicle has been recovered off the carriageway and shooed away, so you've got a clear run through there. It's also looking okay on the M42 around Junction 6, so expect a bit of traffic as there's an event going on at the NEC which has just got underway, so a little bit busy there. As you head away from Birmingham, away from the Black Country, of course there's your match day travel which sees Baggies fans heading to Southampton. It's a 3-hour journey down the M40, though traffic is looking okay along the London-bound carriageway. And to the A34 and M3, no delays reported either. Blues fans are also heading to the seaside. 3-hour journey to Brighton for you guys and girls as you head along the M40. The M25 also clear towards the M23 at Junction 7. No problems reported there. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 Travel 08453 002288.
Morning, Molly.
Good morning, Gary.
Welcome to the show, Paul.
Hello there.
How are you, Mickey?
Yeah, fantastic, thanks.
This year we want you to be part of our shows more than ever.
So we're changing our number, making it cheaper for many callers to give us a bell.
03453 009956.
Just as easy to remember, but it's cutting the cost of the call, especially from most mobile phones.
Good morning, Adrian.
Oh, that's a proper accent to greet me.
A new year, a new phone number. 03453 009956.
Starts this Monday on BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6. Lots to talk about. Benefit Street. Have you seen it? Have you seen this programme? I've not seen it. It's the kind of thing that doesn't appeal to me, but if you've read a newspaper, you can't miss the stories about the people that are in there. Have you seen it? Is it encouraging us to look down on people who are on benefits? If you've been on benefits, if you're on benefits now, how does a programme like that make you feel? 03453 009956. We're also talking as well about the about Stephanie Bottrill, a grandmother from the West Midlands who killed herself and left a letter blaming the bedroom tax. Turns out she would have been exempt and would have been eligible for a refund. Christine's in Great Bar. Morning, Christine.
Good morning.
Christine, what would you like to say?
I don't normally watch these programmes either because they just don't interest me, but I did see a snippet and I thought I'll just have a look at them and see if that's their life and that's what they're happy to do, nothing to look forward to, no holidays, no nothing. I thought, it won't upset me. I was so angry. I was absolutely... Well, I complained to Channel 4. I complained to the police about the shoplifting. And I don't normally... I'm not, a whinger. I don't normally do that. But, what's wrong with this black D and the white D and the couple who have got the little babies? And she's quite happy to go into prison.
Christine, slow down a bit, because I've not seen this. I don't know who you're talking about. Let's go through this one thing at a time. They were showing someone shoplifting, were they?
Yeah, well, not actually shoplifting, but he was showing you how to do it, how not to set the alarms off. And then he goes into Birmingham where he's got an ASBO, which are a waste of time with these people. And he comes out, loads of jeans. They're actually on the bus then, knocking the security tags off. And there's the Channel 4 crew, filming them, showing people how to do it. I was incensed. Channel 4 have got a lot of responsibility because allegedly they were there for 12 months filming. And they obviously pick the worst bits, which that's what the public sometimes wants to see.
But that's what TV programmes do, isn't it? They pick the most sensationalist bits because that's what people will watch. Who was this black D and this white D? Who are they? I've read a little bit about them, but who are they?
Well, she was a lady. Apparently she's on drugs or something. But then you've got the white D, who'd fiddled a load of money previously. But they're all on benefits. Why? I want somebody to tell me why these people cannot work. The only one who couldn't was that little alcoholic-y drug person, Fungi, I think his name was. Because
Fungi, the alcoholic-y drug person.
Well,
yes.
he looked bad and he looked like he needed help. But I'm incensed with it. Can I just say one more thing? I'm sick of everybody blaming the government on everything. I always voted Labour. But this time I voted Conservative. But how can you blame the government on floods? How can you blame the government on... I'm just annoyed, honestly, Ian. I really am.
Why? No, but why has this programme got you angry so much?
Why?
What is it about it that's angered you?
Because it's my money. All right, I've been very lucky, and you've asked people to ring in to say, if you've been on benefits, how does it make you feel? Well, I'd say 90% of people who have to go on benefits, yes, there are times, like you said, they have to. But there's that element which gets up everybody's nose who are on benefits. I know at least half a dozen people who go out and get cash in hand sometimes, and I won't snitch because I think it's karma. It will come round and bite them.
Well, hang on. If you're so angry with them, Christine, then why don't you go and report them to the authorities?
Why?
If it's like you say, it's your money, then why don't you?
It's my money. But what do they do? I know one woman who claimed benefits for children because she'd said her husband had left her. I think she owed £3,000, and when the woman from the, who'd found out, literally said to her, don't worry about paying it all back, we'll just put it down that you'll have to pay £1,000 and we'll just wipe the other off. There's no incentive not to do it because the councils haven't got it in place to keep checking. They just haven't got the facilities.
Do you think, Christine, that programmes like this Benefit Street portray a fair and accurate image of people who are on benefits?
No, definitely not. Not at all. That was as you say, TV programmes pick the worst ever. You had it in all of them. Like, you'll have them drunk on the streets in Newcastle. They show the worst elements of people. And that's what gets people's backs up, and that's what they wanted. And I think they've really, in that sense, done a fabulous job because the whole, I think, of the country are talking about it, whether it's they're laughing at them, whether they're angry about them, whatever the reason, they've really stirred something up here.
Finally, Christine, before I let you go, this case about Stephanie Bottrell, the grandmother who killed herself, and she left a letter blaming the government's spare room subsidy, the bedroom tax. Do you think that was unfair?
Very unfair, again. I mean, I can understand the poor lady in a house all her life.
She thought she was going to lose a load of money and have to move out of her house.
Yeah, well, she should wait and see. This is the trouble with people nowadays. They hold everybody to ransom. It's everybody else's fault except themselves. Why didn't their children have her live with them? I've got my 96-year-old mother-in-law with me at the moment.
Hang on a second. It's not always... we don't know the situation with this family. It's not always acceptable for a grandmother to go and live with her children or her grandkids, is it?
I know, but I'm sure she needed more help then, more support than she got. And it wasn't from the government because the government hasn't got a magic wand to keep helping everybody's little problem out. They just haven't. And that was whether it was Labour who ruined this country or whether it's Conservatives, Liberal, UKIP, whatever they're called. It is not the government. You've got to take a look at yourself, take some pride in yourself and sort your own problems out. Yes, council, governments, friends can help, but at the end of the day, it's you and it's the pride you have in yourself that gets you through things.
Christine, thank you. We'll end it there. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for your time. I just want to tread carefully because a woman has died. A woman has killed herself and her family will be feeling the pain. So we can talk about it, but I do want to tread carefully. I don't want to cause any more upset to a family that's already suffering a lot today. But 03453 009956. Tom has texted in 81333, starting his text WM. People on benefits should be forced to do community work for their money. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. What does that mean, Tom? I'm assuming Tom has never been on benefits. Mark's in Harborne. Morning, Mark.
Morning.
Ever been on benefits?
Do you know what? I had actually briefly been on benefits in as much as when I left the army, I decided that I wanted to go to college. And I had a job working in a hospital, and I went part-time. And my mother said to me, you're entitled to money here. You've been paying your taxes for 5 years in the army and all the rest of it. And I went to college. And they said, look, you can't get on to college unless you're actually onto the benefit scheme. And I thought, you're having a laugh here. So I touched on it briefly in as much as whilst I was out of work and going to college. But I came off it very quickly in as much as I didn't want to sit on the benefits. And you know what interests me with all of this? Because looking at this benefit stream, and I only caught a glimpse of it, because you know what? is actually reflective of my own life when I was a teenager, when I was growing up before I joined the army. And often I think the situation is you don't have to be in that situation. You know, just because life deals you a bad card, you decide which way you want to go. You can go down the thieving route. You can go down the route of just claiming all the time. Or you can say, you know, I've had enough and turn your life around. And whether that was the army for me or not, I don't know. But what I mean is it's about society taking responsibility and saying we've had enough.
But there'll be people listening who are on benefits who want to get jobs, who want to go and work and be a productive member of society, and they don't feel they can do that because the jobs aren't there.
Well, I run my own business, and I think that's a load of tosh at the moment because I'd actually advertise and been advertising. I've been to the job centre, and they make it so hard, the job centre, for employers like myself. I'm a small business to actually advertise jobs. I've ended up having to pay for organisations to advertise these jobs because I can't actually get the advertisement out there on the actual job centre. Now, physically, I've gone in and said, look, this is the advertisement. And they said, look, we're going to get this out to 16, 24-year-olds who haven't been employed for 6 months. Would you be prepared to take these people on? I said, I don't give a damn about what education they've got. It's about aptitude, willing to work, turn up on time, and they've got the ability to do that. Now, I've taken on someone who's been that way, and you know what? He's ended up as one of my managers because he wants to work. And what I'm saying is, yes, people want to work and the jobs are out there. You've got to just go and look for it. When I worked at McDonald's and my niece was astounded with me the other day and said, well, it was different when you were a kid. It wasn't any different. McDonald's are one. Big organisations, Tesco's are taking people on. You've just got to apply yourself and put on a clean shirt or whatever, and go and see these people. And don't tell me you can't afford to go and buy a £3 shirt because you get enough on the benefits to go to Primark to do that.
Mark, I appreciate your call. Thank you. 03453 009956. A couple of interesting points there. Mark saying, there are jobs out there. They might not be the jobs that you want, but there are jobs out there. Go and work at McDonald's. Go and work in Tesco. Well, if you are signing on, do they still call it signing on? That's how old I am. If you are on job seekers allowance, not even sure if they call it that anymore. When you hear things like that, how does that make you feel? Does it get you angry? Or are you kind of there nodding your head going, well, yeah, actually, jobs are out there. It's just not the thing I want to do. 03453 009956. Derek's in Droitwich. Morning, Derek.
Good morning, Ian.
Derek, what would you like to say?
Well, I like to say, no regards to you, but the attack on the way that they attack the benefits now is right across the media. You are doing what the people in charge want to do, and nobody is turning around and checking. I mean, the biggest scroungers have got to be every MP, every English MP, every lord in the House who have fiddled the taxes, fiddled their expenses, and all that.
Well, hang on a second.
Hold on a minute. Let me finish.
But Derek, you've just said two things that aren't true.
They are true. They're still fiddling. You telling me that they're not fiddling their expenses?
Well, let's go through one thing at a time. No, they're not fiddling their expenses now because the whole system.
No. It's just law now, like it was before.
Yeah, it's not illegal.
No, it's not illegal. But they're still fiddling their expenses. In fact, if you have a look at the record of
how can they be if it's not illegal?
The expenses before they've changed it, they are now claiming more expenses than they've ever done. And the tax, but nobody is attacking anybody who is... In fact, people outside in the community think anybody who's fiddling the tax is a good thing.
But again, the expenses... The MPs aren't fiddling their taxes. Where have you got that from?
Who ain't fiddling the tax? There's a lord who flies in from... Is it one of the nearby islands? I forget. Is it Jersey or that? And he flies in for 4 days, stays for the day, and comes back and gets paid for it. Okay?
But that's not fiddling your taxes. That's a different thing altogether.
They make the laws, so it ain't going to be against the laws, but it's a fiddle, just like it was before. And tax evasion is more than the benefits lost in this country. And basically, the media, people in your case, because you wouldn't get a job if you were left wing. You're mainly right wing, and you follow the 5% who rule this country.
Who, me?
Basically. And pardon?
Me? I'm right wing.
I don't know about you. You know, but yes, mainly you're not going to get a job going in saying I'm a left winger, socialist, such and such. When they ask you the questions for your presenter, you wouldn't be on the air. Neither would they be on the television or the radio or anywhere else where they do. Because there is no... You tell me a presenter who gives out over a socialist view.
Derek, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. It's interesting. That's the first time I've heard the BBC being accused of right-wing bias. It's normally the other way around, isn't it? 03453 00 9956. Your thoughts on what Derek had to say, please. Well, should we lay off people on benefits? Channel 4 has defended itself against criticism that its programme Benefit Street is unfairly portraying the lives of people on a street in Birmingham. The programme, which aired on Monday night, has been accused of creating a skewed image of society and stirring up hatred. And thousands of people have signed a petition for it to be taken off air. Well, Ralph Lee, the head of factual programmes at Channel 4, went on Newsnight and responded to allegations that the producers of the show hadn't been honest with residents about what they were doing.
They weren't told that, but they weren't told something else either. So what I would say is the producers have been working with the residents of James Turner Street for nearly 2 years now. It's been a consultation with them long before we started filming. We were there filming for a year, and they were very clear and transparent with everyone on the street about what the nature of the programme was.
Well, Dame Anne Begg is chair of the Commons Work and Pension Select Committee. Joins me now. Good morning, Dame Anne.
Good morning.
An online petition calls for Channel 4 to cancel the remaining episodes because it's creating a skewed image of a section of society and stirring up hatred. What do you think?
I wouldn't go as far as calling for the cancellation of the programme. I'm hopeful that perhaps in the following episodes there might be a rebalancing of the impression that was given. But I do worry that the kind of programme and the title particularly concerned me, the fact that it's called Benefit Street rather than just The Street, gives the impression that this was going to look at people who were trying to survive on what they get through the benefit system. But actually the first programme, 3/4 of it, concentrated on a single storyline of a chap who was a petty criminal and a shoplifter. So he wasn't surviving on the money you get through the benefit system. He was surviving on the money he managed to get through the proceeds of crime. So that, I think, gave a wrong impression that somehow if you're poor, if you're down in your luck, then the only way you can resolve your issues is through crime, when we know that the vast majority of the people who are in that position actually would not dream of breaking the law and actually are very honest and upright and are trying to do their best for their family.
Do you think that a programme like this demonises people who are on benefits and presents a very bad image of them?
That's the concern that I have, and it's not that there's just this programme, but there's been lots of stories in the media, particularly the tabloid press, about scroungers and how there's lots of people or everybody in benefit. It's because they're just too lazy to get a job, when in fact people receive benefit for perfectly legitimate reasons, many because they've paid into the system, they've paid the national insurance contributions over the years, and that's what national insurance is about, is to be able to pay out some money to people when they fall on hard times. And it's that feeling that perhaps this includes everyone, or this is symptomatic of everyone on benefit, is the real problem, rather than saying, look, this is an extreme case of a particular rascal in a particular community, but that's really got nothing to do with the benefit system. You know, he was earning so much more through shoplifting than he ever probably could in a minimum wage job. So it's not just the benefit system that would be encouraging him to do this. In fact, I don't believe it is at all. It's the nature of the individual.
We are presented each week, aren't we, with stories, though, in the newspaper of families with 12 kids who are living off the state and they're getting a brand new house and they can't be bothered to work. Is that fair?
Well, it's not. There are 190 families in the UK who have got 10 or more children. 190. That's not even one per parliamentary constituency. It's not even one per 2 parliamentary constituencies. So, you know, there are very few, and very often, if they've got their families with that large number of children, it's because 2 families have come together, often through the death of one or other of the parents. So, to categorise people having large numbers of children in order to get lots of benefit, There are exceptions and there are extremes, of course there are, but we shouldn't be extrapolating their experience and saying that's why we should change the system. The system works reasonably well for the vast majority of people, and it's there to support, and it's quite right that we support children in our social security system, because after all, they're our next generation, they're our next lot of taxpayers, and if without the taxpayers, we don't have the people who will look after us in old age as well. So it's important that we get the balance right.
Is it becoming acceptable, do you think, to look down on people on benefits? It's becoming the new prejudice.
I think that it possibly is coming a new prejudice, and it's certainly not acceptable. A lot of disabled people and disabled organisations report to my committee that they're witnessing an increase in disability hate crime. People who have obvious disabilities, so therefore will probably be in receipt, only probably, because people don't know what people get in terms of their benefits, but probably in receipt of a benefit, are facing abuse, even though they might be in work. There's lots of money that you get from the state when you're in work. You get your child benefit, even though you're in work. Disability living allowance, if you're in work. These are benefits that are paid to people to help meet the extra costs of the life circumstances they have. And for people with obvious disabilities to be spat at and sworn at in the street, when actually the people who might be fiddling the system are likely to be the ones you wouldn't notice were disabled and wouldn't know that they were fiddling the system. And in terms of fiddling the system, that's a very, very small part of the social security budget. It's less than 1% is lost to fraud in the social security system. Most people are honest, upright, trying to do the best for their families, sometimes in very, very difficult circumstances. And we should be recognising the difficulty of the circumstances, the lack of work, the difficulty faced getting a job if you've got a major health problem or a disability, and the prejudice that employers often display to people who have had mental health problems, for instance. Those should be the things we should be looking at and trying to solve so that everyone can play their full part in society.
First programme in the series, do we need to let it run out, or should we stop it now?
No, I'm not one for censorship of the press. I just want a more sensible media. I want a more balanced view, and I'm hoping that the next episodes are more balanced. Even the episode I'm objecting to, even in that, so there were glimpses of a real sense of community, of people helping each other, of people looking out for their neighbours. But that was only glimpses. I hope they develop those storylines more in the next programmes, so we can actually see what life can be like, real life is like for people, and the difficulties they face for people who are living at the sharp end of poverty.
Damon, Anne Begg, Chair of the Commons Work and Pension Select Committee, thank you very much indeed. 08459. No, that's the old. I'm going for the old number. 03453 009956. 03453 009956. Julia in Tiverdale has sent a text. I feel that child benefit is the one that should either be stopped or limited to 1 or 2 children. Why pay people to breed? We are a crowded island. Some families breed to stay home and live off their children. Well, there you go. Let's go to Debbie in Chelmsley Wood. Morning, Debbie.
Hello, Ian.
Debbie, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I listened with interest to Councillor Jameson this morning on the phone on your programme, and I think, while I agree with most of his sentiments, what he has failed to point out that Solihull Council has been going through a massive programme of regeneration, which basically involves building new houses. Now, why isn't he doing his best to push for single-bedroom properties to be built, when the emphasis of this programme is 2, 3, 4 and even 5-bedroom properties, which is obviously there is a need for, but there is equally a need for 1-bedroom properties. And the other point I want to make is, round the corner from where this poor lady lived are a number
of flats. This was Stephanie Botterill, wasn't it, who killed herself?
Yeah, are a number of flats which are 2 and 3 bedroomed flats that have lain empty for 4 years, you know, and are only now being demolished. Now, I realise Stephanie couldn't have moved into one of them, but surely they could have moved families into one of those and found a 1-bedroom property for Shirley Botterill.
I guess part of the argument with the bedroom tax is people don't want to move. They feel that that's their home. Why should they leave?
Yeah, well, I'm a victim of the bedroom tax, and I live in a 2-bedroom flat.
How much extra does it cost you?
An extra £7 a week.
And can you afford that?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky. Yeah, if I do my finances properly, I can. But the point I'm making is that my 2-bedroom flat is in a block of over 45s, so that without children, so they can't move a family in here, or they can't move families in here. And also, the other point, Ian, is I think we have to consider the officers who have dealt with this case and who now find that due to the government's rushing this programme through and not thinking it through properly, have to live with the fact that they may have added to this woman's stress and caused her the outcome of suicide that she felt she was the only alternative.
Debbie, thanks for your time this morning. 03453 00 9956. Malcolm's in Bourneville. Morning, Malcolm.
Hello, Ian.
Malcolm, what would you like to say?
Well, I wanted to say I agreed with that. Was that the councillor you had on the very first one this morning?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I agree with a lot of what he said, but I rung in to say, look, you know, we all know that if you happen to be unemployed for some reason or other, and depending on age and things like that, quite possibly, and you end up, because of your age, and you maybe end up on benefits for quite a time, that when the governments start moaning about things and going on, they always blame the people that are unemployed that they've got to pay. But so they start squeezing the people that are working and paying taxes, and then when these people, when the people that are paying the taxes start saying, well, I'm working, I'm doing nearly twice as much work here and everything, and I'm paying all this tax. And I said, well, we've got to pay for all the people that are on benefits. So then it creates them and all pointing the finger at people that are on benefits, because this government, who's got plenty of money in their own pockets and in their banks and so on, start pointing the finger at the poor. And this is how it always goes. And so, therefore, everybody then gets the backup about people on benefits and things like that, Ian. You see where I'm coming from?
Do you think this prejudice is unfair?
Eh?
This prejudice is unfair?
Of course it's unfair. It's always, especially when a Tory government is in power, they will always point the finger at people that are unemployed and they will say, well, look, there's jobs there. I wouldn't do that job, but you go and do it. And you might think, well, I'm not going to do that job. And then they look at you as if to say, well, as if they're going to put the foot on you and squeeze you like a bit of dirt. This is the trouble with this country, and especially when a Tory government is in power. This is how the Tory people are. You clean
do programmes like this make it worse?
I'll give you some money, sort of thing.
Do programmes like Benefit Street make it worse?
Well, they don't so much make it worse. In fact, it depends if the right people see these things, but the people who you need to see them don't. Look at them, like the big bosses and bosses of industry and people who've got the multi-millions. They're never watching the TV half the time, so they won't see it, so they don't know what's going on. And so the government just pushes it off as that's, and let everybody else point the finger at them. You see what you
Listen,
see, Ian?
Thank you very much for your call. Right, let's get the latest travel now. Here's Liz.
Thank you very much, Ian. As you head to the M6 going south, there's a lane closed on the entry slip road as a vehicle was broken down at junction 9. This is the Wednesbury exit, and there's no delays in the area, but obviously just be a bit careful around there. In the centre of Birmingham, you'll still find temporary traffic lights because of work going on at Snow Hill, Queensway and St Chad's, the A38. It's the tram extension work that's taking place. So temporary lights, new road layout, that has been causing bits of congestion at times, so just be very careful. Busy now as you head into Birmingham through Handsworth on Soho Road, and along Hagley Road is starting to snarl up a bit, approaching Five Ways Island. Not too bad on the motorway routes, though. Round by the NEC there's an event going on which got underway at 9 o'clock this morning. A lot of traffic expected there, just around junction 6 of the M42 and on the A45. you'll find that traffic builds at times. Now, your match day travel sees Baggies fans head to Southampton. It's a 3-hour journey or thereabouts as you head down the M40 and onto the A34 and then the M3. But I've had no reported delays or issues on any of those routes so far today. It's a similar story for Blues fans heading to the seaside, heading to Brighton. Again, about a 3-hour journey down the M40 to the M25. Both those main motorway routes are looking okay. And then on to the M23 from Junction 7 as the London Orbital, and that's all looking clear as well as you head towards the south coast. On public transport, just be aware that there are disruptions as you make your way on cross-country services going between Birmingham New Street and Reading. This is because of flooding in the area at Radley. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 Travel 08453 002288.
It must be exciting for you to know that you are part of movie classics that will be still enjoyed by generations not yet born.
Well, of course, I absolutely loved it. I love Hollywood. I mean, there's nothing nicer than working under perfect conditions and being in successful commercial films. That's my idea of heaven.
This Sunday, I've got an archive interview with the original Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins, David Tomlinson.
Ed Doolan on a Sunday.
This Sunday from 12 noon.
On BBC WM 95.6.
Going on to a new topic, should Andrew Mitchell get his job back? Mr Mitchell has always denied calling the officers plebs. Well, Tom Watson is a former deputy chair of the Labour Party and MP for West Bromwich East. I asked him, should Andrew Mitchell get his job back?
Well, I don't think he used the word pleb. I think that he obviously had a spat with a police officer and apologised for it at the time, but he wasn't believed. And I think events have unfolded and shown that he was telling the truth, and an injustice has been done to him, and the best way to put these matters right is to restore him back to the cabinet where he was before he left.
He didn't use the word pleb, but am I right, he did swear at the police officers?
I think he said he did that, and, you know, this is the situation. You know, people have disagreements and do things they regret, and he expressed regret for that at the time. He apologised for it. He shouldn't have done it. It was an inappropriate act. But then there was this explosion. We've got investigations, media frenzies, sort of, you know, political examination of the act. And at the core of it, Andrew Mitchell told the truth. He had a row with a police officer for which he apologised. And I think the matter should have rested there. Instead, we had this very complex and nuanced discussion about, you know, politics and his character, when actually he'd been through a nightmare. And I think we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. And hopefully he will be a better person having gone through this process. And if he's given the chance to make the country a better place as a government minister because of it, then that's not a bad thing.
If some young kid on the street swore at a police officer, there is a good chance they might get put in the back of a car, isn't there? It's not a great example for a member of cabinet to set, is it?
It's a poor example, and he shouldn't have done it, and he's apologised. But actually, you know, I was getting a train from Birmingham to Sandwell just on Friday, and there was a drunk kid on the train swearing. Did the cops arrest him? No. He just got off the train and had to get the next train. You know, policing is a nuanced game, and police officers have to make judgments, don't they? And at the time when Andrew Mitchell swore at them, they were obviously very upset. And one of the other things I hope that can come from this is we can just have some calm and peace for the cops that were involved in doing security at the gate as well. You know, I think the best thing we can try and do is move on from this. You know, lots of people have suffered greatly from what was effectively a crosswords between two individuals in the heat of the moment. And the problem is I'm doing a radio interview discussing it nearly a year later, so it's going to run and run and run. But at some point, you've got to deal with the consequences of these things.
This isn't finished, is it? Because there is a libel case going on. PC Toby Rowland, who Andrew Mitchell called a serial liar, is suing for libel. So it's still not finished, is it?
It's not finished, and that's it's a terrible shame. And I would hope it's not my responsibility, but I hope that they could resolve this admirably between the two of them. It's not for me to intervene in that, but there's obviously still things to play out on this. But the central allegation that he called a police officer a pleb, I'm afraid I believe Andrew Mitchell on that now, and it might be that the police officer interpreted what he said as hearing that, but I think Andrew Mitchell has told the truth, and I think he's suffered greatly, and I think his family have too, and he's a political opponent of mine. I don't have to say this, not many politicians would, but I think in circumstances like this, he deserves a second chance.
Finally, Tom, do you think there was a willingness amongst his peers to believe this had actually happened? Because there was an investigation by the Conservatives, and they came down on the side of the police, didn't they?
I think the investigation was carried out inadequately. I mean, they obviously didn't review the video evidence at the time, otherwise they would have probably acted differently. But, Andrew Mitchell might not like me saying this, but I think part of the problem for him was people thought that he had a character where he might use that word, and were prepared to believe everything they read and heard on that basis. And, there's a funny thing about politics. When you go through these crucibles of injustice, it's probably the only injustice that Andrew Mitchell has ever seen happen to him in his life. And I see him in the chamber now, in the Commons, as an opponent, and he's a more humble man. And I've just got a hunch that if he's given a chance to go back to the Cabinet in a post he was doing before, we might see the best of Andrew Mitchell. The best might be yet to come. And wouldn't it be great if he could be given that opportunity?
That's Tom Watson talking to Iain Lee, a little pre-recorded interview. As you can probably tell, this isn't Iain Lee, this is Adrian Goldberg. Iain Lee has been taken ill, just as I was. You may have heard me broadcasting just before Christmas. There's a lot of the lurgy going around at the moment. So poor old Iain has been sent off to his sick bed, just as I was, on the 23rd of December. And I'm now in Iain's seat. So welcome along. I'm glad you're with us. Adrian Goldberg here on BBC WM. It's already been a fascinating listen, though, hasn't it, with Iain this morning? So many things that we're discussing, talking about whether you would give Andrew Mitchell his job back, whether or not, as well, you trust the police. I know we touched on that earlier in the week when we were talking about the Mark Duggan verdict, but the fact that a police officer has acknowledged that he lied about his overhearing a conversation involving Andrew Mitchell. Astonishing stuff. So I'll throw it out to you this morning. Should Andrew Mitchell get his job back? And do you trust the police? Has something happened in the culture of policing? 03453 00 9956, or you can text me as well on 81333. Start your message with WM. We're going to speak later as well to the daughter of Stephanie Bottrill. That's a tragic case, isn't it? Stephanie taking her own life because she believed that she couldn't afford her bedroom tax. It turns out that she would have been exempt. And we're also discussing here on BBC WM this morning this very curious case that's of Benefit Street, and whether or not we are too willing to demonise those who claim benefits. 03453 00 9956. Adrian Goldberg in for Iain Lee, who has gone sick. Let's get a word with Richard in Erdington. Hi, Richard. How are you, mate?
Adrian.
Hello, matey, yeah.
I'm a regular listener to yourself in the week. I'm Richard from Erdington, the Blue Nose.
Yeah.
I just want to make 3 quick points, because I know you come up to the news as well. I hope Ian gets better quickly.
No worries, I'm sure he will. He needs just a good lie down like I did when I was poorly. Go on, mate.
Right. I'll just get to the point, Adrian, and then you can make your own comments afterwards. The first point is about Stephanie. Don't really want to say much because she's not there today to defend herself, but it's funny the government says that she was entitled to it when she's no longer here. The second point, Benefit Street, aren't we missing the point? It's supposed to be called James Turner Street. And why sorry, I mean, it is called James Turner Street, but the Channel 4 documentary makers called it Benefit Street, didn't they? Yeah, I think they did, because they nicknamed after that. But they've never made a disclaimer saying they're not against anybody, anything like on that programme. But again, what I'm trying to point out, again, Channel 4, the paper, is making Birmingham look bad when we're trying to make it a good place to come. Again, it's all about Birmingham and the Midlands, again, how bad we are. And the other third part I'd like to say, Adrian, there seems to be a lot of jealousy and people against each other who's on benefits. People on benefits all got different reasons why they're on benefits, and they're all branded in one little show. They're all on benefits for no reason, or are there people just judging them on benefits for not for other reasons. So I'm getting quite angry that Birmingham is a target again.
Well, do you think Birmingham is a target, or could Benefit Street have been a street in any town, in any city across the country?
A point we could say, Adrian, is why Birmingham, again, there's always things about Birmingham. I mean, we try to win things, don't we, but we never get them, do we? And it's all depending what side of Birmingham you might come into one side of Birmingham, you think it's horrible. You come to the other side of Birmingham, it's nice. But Birmingham is always judged badly. I'll go around the country quite a lot, and Birmingham, you know, they screw the noises up, and I'll say, have you been to Birmingham? No. I said, why judge it then? And a lot of people know.
Well,
Richard,
Richard, it's very interesting that you've got that perspective on it. Is Richard right to say that this programme makes Birmingham look particularly bad, that in a sense they're picking on us again? Do you believe that, or do you think this kind of thing could happen in any street, in any town, in any city across the UK? Taking a call from Stan in Burntwood. Stan, welcome to BBC WM. How are you, mate?
How are you?
Yeah, welcome, my friend. Go on.
The gentleman has a point, really. She's picking on Birmingham, even with the Peaky Blinders, just Birmingham. But they haven't picked on Glasgow or anywhere in London, have they?
Well, no, but there is a programme on Ripper Street set in London, and hey, what? Come on, we're not going to buy this, are we, Stan? Because there's a documentary that's unflattering about Birmingham that they've all got it in for us.
No, I didn't say that. I said he has a point that it could be. She's making Birmingham look a bad place. But the most important thing I was on about is the pleb affair.
Yeah.
I don't think he should get his job back.
Who, Andrew Mitchell? Why not?
Well, if you let me tell you, I'll tell you.
Go on, then.
Well, first of all, he started the argument. He knows very well that you can't open the big gates for a bloke with a big head to go through on a push bike. And that's what it started off. He wanted the big gates on so he could go through on his bike. He knows very well he should have gone through on the little gate, which he went through in the end.
So the fact that
go through the little gate.
So the fact that Andrew Mitchell was just asking for a copper for a favour to go through sort of the quick way, that's worthy of losing his job as Foreign Secretary, is it?
Or the terrorist had probably crashed through. He knows the law, he knows the rules, and that's what he should obey, right? Don't you obey him when he's driving? The rules of the road. But the other thing is, he was on about the fiddles of the expenses of the MP. Some gent was on about it. How about that MP has just been fined, just been sent to prison for fiddling £13,000?
Who's that, Stan?
I think he was a Labour MP.
Oh, he's been sent to prison, yeah.
He stood there posing with a big smirk on his face, a dark overcoat on and a red scarf around his neck, a big smile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing 6 months in prison for 13 grand, would you?
Well, I'm not sure I would. I'm not sure I would fancy spending that amount of time in prison, Stan, for 13 grand. But, you know, you pays your money, you takes your choice. Stan in Burntwood, thanks very much indeed for your comment. Adrian Goldberg here, sitting in on a Saturday morning for Iain Lee, who was taken ill. Loads of great conversation to come. We're going to talk more about the bedroom tax after it emerged that Stephanie Bottrill, a woman from the Solihull area of the West Midlands, took her own life because of the bedroom tax, but it turns out that she was exempt. We're going to talk to her daughter a little later. Take more of your calls too on Plebgate and whether Andrew Mitchell should get his job back, and are we demonising benefits claimants?
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Very good morning to you. It's Adrian Goldberg here, sitting in for Iain Lee this Saturday morning. Thanks for joining us on BBC WM. Getting some great conversations going this morning. We've already heard from the West Bromwich MP, who says that Andrew Mitchell should now be given his job back after Plebgate. Do you agree? Now that a police officer has admitted lying about overhearing a conversation involving Andrew Mitchell. Do you think, in light of what we've heard with Plebgate and the Mark Duggan case this week, that we can trust our police officers? Is there a real crisis of integrity in the force? And also talking this morning more about Benefit Street. It's obsessed us this week on the weekday show. If you haven't had your chance to have your say during the week, maybe because you only hear BBC WM at the weekends, are unemployed people being demonised by shows like Benefit Street? 03453 00 9956. Give us a call. Let's get the news now with Kevin Pashby.
Good morning. It's emerged a Solihull woman who killed herself last year, leaving a note blaming the government's spare room subsidy, wouldn't have had to pay and would actually be eligible for a refund. Stephanie Bottrell was about to leave her three-bedroom home in Kingshurst because her benefits were being cut as she had spare rooms. It's been revealed this week an error in the legislation means working-age tenants in social housing who've occupied the same home since 1996 are exempt from the tax. That means Stephanie wouldn't have had to pay. Adrian Goldberg will be talking to Stephanie's daughter in the next hour here on BBC WM. David Jameson is the leader of the Labour group on Solihull Council. He's spoken to BBC WM in the past hour.
It's desperately sad, and friends and relatives of Stephanie must be absolutely devastated by what's happened. And to find out now that due to the total incompetence of the government, that she wasn't actually eligible to pay this amount really is the last straw for these people.
The daughter of a convicted killer says she's living in fear after hearing her father, who killed her grandmother, is being allowed unsupervised leave from a Birmingham mental health hospital. Schizophrenic Kevin Roberts killed his mum at her home in Whitchurch, but he can now leave Rayside Clinic in Rubery, where he's detained for hours at a time. The family claim they were never told his daughter is Faye Howlett.
I need as much help as I can get to try and put a stop to this, to try and stop him having freedom. I need help. I need someone to help me. And this is why I'm talking to you as well, hoping that someone will listen to this and help me. Because this man will kill again and nobody is believing me.
The Ministry of Justice says any decision to allow community leave is only taken after a full risk assessment by medical staff, and the safety of victims and their families is paramount. Labour says if it wins the next election, teachers working in state schools would have to apply for a licence every couple of years. The Shadow Education Secretary, Tristram Hunt, says as a result, most teachers would receive better training, while the worst ones could be sacked. The Conservatives say they're already improving teacher training and have given head teachers the power to remove poorly performing teachers more swiftly than before. People will gather in Birmingham this afternoon as part of a peaceful vigil over Mark Duggan, whose shooting by police in London led to riots across the country. Earlier this week, an inquest jury concluded that he had been lawfully killed. It's being held at West Midlands Police Headquarters, whilst the Duggan family hold a similar vigil in London. In sports news, West Bromwich Albion head to Southampton with their new boss, Pepe Mel, looking on from the stands. Birmingham City are at Brighton. Walsall are a point outside the playoffs in League One as they make the trip to Tranmere, whilst Wolves take on Preston in another meeting of two League One promotion challengers at Molineux. The head coach, Kenny Jackett, says they weren't ruthless enough to finish off teams in their disappointing run of results over Christmas and New Year.
The bar is always in our industry is to win. We know that. You have to then analyse it well, look a little bit below the surface sometimes to see how things are going, but really try to, within a group and within a club, develop a winning mentality that you get over the line however you do it.
Well, we'll have full coverage of this afternoon's football here on BBC WM from 2, with our build-up starting at midday with early kick-off. Taking a look at the weather, dry and sunny, light winds, highs of 8 Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit. Staying dry tonight, turning cold, lows down to -2, 28 Fahrenheit. Sunday's looking cold to start with sunny spells and showers. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The Voice. The Voice.
The Voice.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
No matter where you live, so much crime. But I still have to make ends meet.
Don't always just get their wages, they get expenses on top of it.
Adrian Goldberg.
Monday to Friday,
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Very good morning to you. It's Adrian Goldberg in on BBC WM, moonlighting at the weekend after Iain Lees went off sick. Get well soon, Iain. Glad to have you along with us. The West Midlands' biggest Saturday phone-in today. So many things to talk about. Of course, we've had a police officer acknowledging in court that he lied in the Plebgate affair with regard to Andrew Mitchell, the Sutton Coldfield MP. We've heard from one Labour MP, Tom Watson, of all people, saying that Andrew Mitchell should now get his job back. Stan in Burntwood, though, says Andrew Mitchell brought all this upon himself by asking police officers to do him a favour going through the quick way with his bike at Downing Street. So what do you reckon? Should Andrew Mitchell get his job back? And we talked a lot this week about trusting the police. On my weekday show, of course, the Mark Duggan verdict came out. This is another example, isn't it? After Mark Duggan, after Hillsborough, after so many incidents where the integrity of the police has at the very least been called into question. So can we trust the cops? Has something gone wrong with policing culture? Give me a call. 03453 00 9956.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 00 9956.
BBC WM 95.6.
Also been a lot of chat this week on my show in the week, Monday to Friday, about Benefit Street, the Channel 4 programme. I don't know if you watched it. There's a lot of people saying in the aftermath of the row over Benefit Street that unemployed people are being demonised, sometimes being shown as second-class citizens, that they are a kind of a kicking rag for the rest of society. If you're on benefits, I'd love to hear from you about whether you feel you are looked down upon, whether people who are unemployed are somehow seen as second-class citizens. Have we lost our empathy, our care, our concern for those who, for one reason or another, are unable to provide for themselves? I'd welcome your thoughts on that on 03453 00 9956, or you can text as well on 81333. Start your message with WM. And comments too about Stephanie Botterill. Stephanie's the lady from this area who took her own life, and in her note when she passed away, she blamed, amongst other things, the spare room subsidy, known commonly as the bedroom tax. Well, now, tragically, you might think, it has emerged that the bedroom tax that she felt that she was due to pay was in fact a tax or a subsidy payment that she was exempt from. She needn't have paid it at all. So I'd welcome your thoughts on that. We're going to speak to Stephanie's daughter in a little while. 03453 00 9956, or text 81333. Start your message with WM. Let's speak to William in Tipton. Want to talk about Plebgate. Hello, William. How are you?
Morning, Adrian.
Yeah, welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Andrew Mitchell.
Yeah.
He shouldn't get his job back in the cabinet. He swore at the police, full stop. Whether he said pleb or not, he swore at them. Now, there's a policeman now probably end up in jail next week for saying for lying. But don't politicians lie to the public every day of the week?
No. Do you think they do, William?
I do. And there wouldn't be a politician. They'd all be jailed. There wouldn't be nobody left in Parliament for the lies that they tell the public. So,
William, I'm sure there are some politicians who sometimes lie, but I don't believe that most politicians lie most of the time. I really don't. What makes you say that?
Well, in the manifestos, for a start, they tell us they're going to do this and that, and then about the people who were going into, when they leave school, going to, who was it, Clegg, when he said that there'd be no rises in the university.
Yeah, no, he did say, didn't he, that there would be no... He did say there would be... The Liberal Democrats would not support tuition fees for students. And then when he was given the chance to be in a coalition government, that went by the by. Do you think he told a lie, or do you think that in opposition he promised something which in reality he just wasn't able to deliver? That would be different to a lie, wouldn't it? That would be...
It's a white lie, isn't it? But I mean...
Well, is it? I mean, just some...
lie,
yeah.
all the same. But this person is he's probably lied about Andrew Mitchell. He'll probably get a prison sentence When, as I say, politicians lie all the while, don't they?
William, that's your view. That's your view. Andrew Mitchell, certainly in this incident, hasn't lied. He did swear at a police officer, and he's acknowledged that he swore at a police officer, and he apologised at the time for swearing at a police officer. Should you lose your job just because you swear at a copper? What would happen if you swore at a copper? If I swore at a copper, would you expect to lose your job for that? 03453 00 9956 or text me on 81333. Start your message with WM. This is from Julia in Tividale, talking about benefits and whether we in some way demonise those who are on benefits. Julia says, I feel child benefit is the one that should either be stopped or limited to 1 or 2 children. Why pay people to breed? We are a crowded island. And this is another texter saying this is in relation to Benefit Street and whether Birmingham's been shown in a bad light. Jane Dudley says Birmingham is a great place. There are parts of Manchester that are as rough as anything and make Benefit Street look tame. David Frankley on the text says bedroom tax. The government should bow their heads in shame and abolish this tax, which only attacks the poor and the vulnerable. If you want to send me a text, it's 81333. Start your message with WM. Terry's in Coseley. Good morning, Terry. How are you?
Morning.
Go on, you're on BBC WM.
I've been very, very poorly all over the Christmas with that dreaded bug that's been going around.
So many people have had it. I had it, and I went off air on the 23rd of December. And even though I've been back on air on WM this week, I was due to have a week off anyway. There's still occasions when I have to have my microphone turned down because I'm coughing away. It's really
exactly like
nasty lurgy, isn't it?
And my sore throat keeps coming back every night when I go to bed. But anyway, what I found out about really was this Cleggate business. I mean, if that man had behaved himself and done what he was told in the first place, there'd have been none of this trouble. Look at the expense it's cost going through courts just because he wouldn't behave. I mean, when I used to come home from work in the early hours and the police used to pull me up on a spot check, you just had to do what they told you. They was there to do their job. I mean, that man, obviously, is a very arrogant person, and he just wouldn't do it. The police that's what the police was there for, to do their job. Had they let him go through these different gates to other people, apparently, they wouldn't have been doing their job right. They was told that he'd got to get through that gate, and that's what they told him. And apparently that guy's that arrogant that he just wouldn't have that.
It's interesting, Terry, that at the time when Andrew Mitchell lost his job, that word that you have used, arrogant, was used by many people in relation to him. So whatever the rights and wrongs of the affair, and we now know that a police officer lied about overhearing this conversation, there wasn't necessarily a deep well of sympathy for Andrew Mitchell because he is perceived by some people as being arrogant.
Well, he come over as arrogant because when he tells you that he's arrogant, because when you go up there on your bike, wherever they was going, and the police said, you can't go through that gate, you've got to go through that gate, then he stopped and argued the toss, and that tells you he's arrogant. He tells everybody around the world he's arrogant because he wouldn't do what the police was there being paid to tell him to do. Why did he think he was different and he shouldn't go where the police told him? That tells you he's arrogant.
So do you think he shouldn't get his job back, Terry?
No, I'm not saying that. I think he should be, he should go in front of his boss, whoever he is, and be told
David Cameron's
to do as he's told.
David Cameron's his boss.
Well, he should go in front of David Cameron and said, look, I'm very sorry, it was a naughty thing I did. I've caused a lot of expense, I've caused a lot of people trouble, and it's cost a fortune. Just because he wouldn't get through the gate he was told to. I mean, that shows. I mean, I don't say he's arrogant. He's told me he's arrogant by doing that.
Terry and Coseley, very interesting call. You know what? When I came in this morning, sitting in for Ian, I thought, really, everybody will agree with the proposition put forward by the Labour MP, Tom Watson, that Andrew Mitchell should get his job back. And here I am, listening to people saying he's an arrogant so-and-so. Maybe he doesn't deserve his job back. Really? You're very harsh and unforgiving this morning, I have to say. Andrew Mitchell, should he get his job back? And as I say, for me, there's a bigger issue. In a week when we've had this Mark Duggan verdict, an unarmed man shot dead on the streets of our capital city by the police, a verdict which a jury who had heard all of the inquest said was a lawful killing. But nevertheless, we've still had a police officer shooting an unarmed man dead. We've got a police officer admitting lying in a case like this. We've had the massive cover-ups over incidents like Hillsborough. Can we trust our police? Is something wrong in police culture in this country? 03453 00 9956. Take more of your calls as well about Benefit Street and whether we're demonising the unemployed. And what do you make of the revelation this morning that Stephanie Bottrill, whose suicide note explained that she was taking her own life because of the spare room subsidy known as the bedroom tax, it now emerges that she was, in fact, exempt from that tax. 03453 00 9956. Let's get the latest travel now with Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Good morning. As you head around Birmingham, there's temporary lights still and a new road layout around Snow Hill Queensway to watch out for by St Chad's and Snow Hill Station. It's while tram extension work continues. A little bit busy as you head into Birmingham on Hagley Road around Five Ways Island, though slightly better than it was. Best news on the M6 now going south as well. That lane reopened on the entry slip road. A vehicle had broken down, but it's been recovered at junction 9, the Wednesbury exit to the A461. Your match day travel sees Baggies fans heading to Southampton down the M40. Blues fans also going in that direction. The M40 is looking fine so far. The West Bromwich fans split off onto the A34, a suggested route as you head to Southampton for this afternoon's game. And then the M3, which is looking OK as well. Blues fans are going to Brighton to the seaside. So the M25 not looking too bad currently. So you head to the M23. That's also clear. No reported delays as you head towards the south coast. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
Pete Morgan at breakfast. Pepe Mel, the new manager of West Bromwich Albion, he wrote a novel a few years ago, a bit kind of Da Vinci Code-ish. We've got an extract from one of you. Ready for this? Now, remember, it was written in Spanish and then translated into English, so some of it is a little bit rough. That wasn't a bit from the book, by the way, that was me explaining. And the beautiful vision of that mysterious island broke into 1,000 pieces. Why was he still enduring that terrible ordeal and not throwing the damn machine out of the window? He asked the same question every morning. Should I play the big lad up front and play the long ball game? Pete Morgan at breakfast. I may have added that last bit. That's quite decent. I'm going to get that. I'm back Monday morning at 6 for a brand new week on BBC WM 95.6.
Very good morning to you. Adrian Goldberg in this morning. You don't normally hear me these days on a Saturday, but Iain Lee has taken sit, so I'm delighted to be here sitting in. Got a fantastic afternoon of sport ahead here on BBC WM. Southampton against the Baggies live with Franksy and Rigo. Brighton against Blues. Wolves against Preston. Tranmere against Walsall. Right now, though, the West Midlands' biggest phone-in, as we dub it through the week, is taking to the airwaves on a Saturday morning. So many great talking points for you. And very often, I know from doing this show in the past, there are people listening now to BBC WM who either hear us in the week but don't have the chance to phone in, maybe because they're at work, or maybe don't even hear us at all during the week. So this might be your one and only opportunity to join in on our big debate on this show. So if that applies to you and you can't get to join in during the week, feel free to join in this morning. I do know doing the weekday show, nothing has rattled people's cages as much this week as the Benefit Street television programme based in James Turner Street in Winson Green in Birmingham. And the question's been raised this morning about whether we've now become the kind of country where benefits claimants in general are demonised, are seen as somehow second-class citizens. People suggesting that the government would like us to look down upon those who are unemployed, those who are claiming benefits. Is that what's going on here? And one or two callers already telling me this morning that they think that the show does Birmingham no favours in a they're picking on us kind of way. Is that really fair? I mean, don't believe it. I don't think anybody watching this would think that it's particularly typical of Birmingham or the West Midlands uniquely, would they? 03453 00 9956, or you can text me on 81333. Start your message with WM. Also been talking this morning about Andrew Mitchell. We heard from the West Bromwich MP, Tom Watson, who says that Andrew Mitchell, now that a police officer has admitted lying over the Plebgate affair, should get his job as Foreign Secretary back. Not every listener to this programme agrees. We've had a couple of people saying that Andrew Mitchell is arrogant. He shouldn't have been asking the police officers to go that particular way anyway. For me, there's a big issue here this week about police trust, because we don't only have an officer admitting lying about Plebgate, we've also had the Mark Duggan affair, where the jury, hearing all the evidence, said that it was lawful to shoot a man dead on the streets of our capital city, even though he was unarmed. We've had the Hillsborough tragedy and the great cover-up there. So is there a crisis in trust with the police? 03453 00 9956 or text 81333. Start your message with WM. Brian's in Yardley Wood. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Morning.
Yeah, go on, mate. Andrew Mitchell there, my friend. Go on.
Yes, of course, Mr. Mitchell should get his job back. You know, from the start of it, I could never understand what the difference is between opening a big gate and a little gate. You know, I think the police officer brought it on himself, really.
Well, it's interesting that one texter says, this is John in Edgbaston, Brian, he says Andrew Mitchell always cycled out of that particular vehicle entrance on the day the police stopped him. Who ordered that and why? I don't know if he did or he didn't normally go out of that exit.
Well, when he first started, I saw that, and Mr. Mitchell drove up right to the gates, and the police officer wouldn't let him through. He had to go and get through the little one. I couldn't see the difference between opening that gate and the other gate. So, to me, the police officer brought it on himself. You know, I mean, what's the difference between opening one door to another?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know whether there were, the suggestion is there were security implications about that. One or two people are even now, Brian, and at the time, though, just, I think, unsympathetic to Andrew Mitchell because of whether rightly or wrongly, fairly or unfairly, he has an air that some people detect of arrogance about him.
I think we've all got a bit of arrogance in all of us somewhere, but as regards to a police officer lying, you can't judge a police officer just because there's one bad apple in the barrel.
No, but I think there's been quite a few bad apples, isn't it? As somebody said yesterday, do you have to look at the whole orchard? And not implying that every police officer is corrupt, because I know they aren't. Many are brave, many are honest, many are true. But there does seem to be a bit of an issue with police culture. Many people call me in the week, Brian, saying that on the Mark Duggan thing, they just didn't believe the police's account of things.
Well, in life, you have to suss these people out and get rid of them.
Great to hear from you. Thanks for joining in on BBC WM this morning. 03453 00 9956, or you can email as well, adrian.goldberg@bbc.co.uk.
Adrian Goldberg
on BBC WM
95.6, the voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Now, a convicted killer is being allowed unsupervised leave from a mental health hospital in Birmingham, despite appeals from his family not to let him out. Schizophrenic Kevin Roberts, who killed his mother at her home in 2005, is now being allowed to leave Rayside Clinic in Rubery for 4 hours at a time. His daughter, Faye Howlett, is on the line now. Good morning to you, Faye.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us on BBC WM. Just give us a bit of the background of the story, if you can, please.
Well, basically, obviously, my dad fractured my aunt's skull in 1993 and battered my granddad to death, and he served time for that. He then attacked a member of the public, a disabled man, served time for that, and then, the third time, murdered my nan. Smashed her skull to pieces.
So he was convicted of one killing previously.
No, he was the first time he battered my nan and granddad with a wooden ashtray that was on like a stand.
Yeah.
The marble ashtray, sorry. And he fractured her skull that time. She ended up in hospital. And he battered my granddad, and he had over 100 stitches in his head.
Gosh.
And he served time for that in 1993.
Yeah.
He then attacked a disabled man, a member of the public, for nothing, with iron bars up his legs, and he served time for that. You know, and then he fractured my nan's skull. Well, battered my nan's skull, and she died. Obviously, he battered her with a poker, a hammer. The poker split, and then he dragged her into the kitchen and poured boiling water all over her. He put her through hell.
And when was that, Faye?
That was in 2005.
And that obviously killed your gran, yeah?
Yeah. She was found dead by my cousin on the kitchen floor. But my auntie tried to put a stop to all this 7 years ago. She went to MPs, doctors, police, mental health team. No one would help. And in the Home Office, the Ministry of Justice are saying it's paramount in making decisions of the safety of victims and family. Well, where's my paramount? Because I haven't even had a phone call to say he's been allowed out on the streets. You know, he's done 3 things now. You know, what's it going to take? The 4th thing for me or my family, one of my members' family, to be killed, and then they'll take note. You know, Birmingham people know what evil murdering man is on their streets and walk in their shopping centres, because I feel for Birmingham public as well, because he shouldn't be on the streets.
And Faye, what is his condition? As I understand it, he's got schizophrenia, yes?
Well, he says he's got schizophrenia, but when my dad was younger, he abused drugs. He was on LSD, magic mushrooms, you name it, he had it. So that's, I think, personally, and my family think, that's what's messed my dad's head up. We just think he knows how to play the system. He's been in and out of there, all, you know, prison, he's been in Shelton, in Shrewsbury Hospital, mental hospital. You know, he's been under the mental health. He knows how to play the system. He will be behaving in there, keeping himself clean, doing as he's told. He's a very, very clever, manipulative man. And no one will believe me and my family that this man will kill again.
Do you think that people who have the kind of problems that Kevin Roberts has can ever be cured or rehabilitated?
He hasn't got a problem. He's just an evil, jealous murderer. He only killed my nan out of jealous outrage because my nan was paying more attention to my auntie at the time, because she'd just gone through a split with her boyfriend. So my nan was supporting my auntie, and my dad was jealous. You know, and as for the Home Office saying that he has a full risk assessment and he's reassessed. Well, he was reassessed 2 days before he killed my nan, because the Shropshire Mental Health team went out and assessed Kevin, and they said he seemingly looks okay. And my nan rung up with them concerns, and then 2 days later, my poor nan is dead. I just feel like, was all my nan's life worth 8 years? All he's done is 8 years, and he's walking the streets. You know, it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
And we're talking here, Faye, about your father.
Yeah, I know. He's never been a dad to me. All he's ever done is scare the hell out of me. I used to have a police escort to school and back, because he would stalk me. He chased me around the town. I've wet my pants because I was so frightened of him. You know, I've had injunctions out of it on him. I changed my name because I was embarrassed to be his daughter. You know, he's such an evil man, and I'm saying this, I'm his daughter. You know, and I've grown up with this man. I know all his ins and outs, and so does an awful lot of people in Whitchurch. You know, I've got over 5,000 signatures. I've got a Facebook group going, and I've got 850 signatures on a petition online, 24.com, if people want to join in. The more signatures I get, the better, because if I have to go to London, to Parliament, to speak to the Prime Minister, I'll have to do this, because I can't let this man be on the streets. He's not safe for me, my family. You know, I'm living in fear. You know, I don't know if you know from BBC News. You know, I'm frightened to death. I've had extra locks. I won't let my little girl in the garden because I'm scared that he'll kidnap her or blunder her to death like he did my nan, or kill me, my auntie, my mum. You know, I'm in a total mess. And no one, I rung the clinic last night just to see if he was still there, and they wouldn't even say yes he was. They would not speak to me. They wouldn't answer any of my questions last night. So he could have been on the streets for all I know last night. You know, I don't know. And he escaped from Reeside Clinic years ago. So he's escaped from where he is now. Years ago, and he got all the way to Craypit Street in Whitchurch to my nan's before the police picked him up. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's a very clever man.
OK, Faye, thanks very much indeed for sharing that story with us. That's Faye Howlett talking about her father, Kevin Roberts, who has been diagnosed as a schizophrenic, killed his own mother. Faye's grandmother in 2005 is allowed to leave Rayside Clinic in Rubery for several hours at a time. The Ministry of Justice have sent us a statement. They say we can advise that the role of mental health services includes working to support all patients in their rehabilitation, and as part of this work, patients are continually assessed for leave and ultimately discharged from inpatient services. In the case of any restricted patients, this process is even more thorough and involves a full risk assessment by senior medical staff and the approval of the Ministry of Justice before leave is granted to ensure the safety of patients, victims of crime and their families. You might want to respond to what you've heard Faye saying on the show this morning. Feel free to pick up the phone and join in and give us a call. 03453 00 9956. It's 10:30.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 00 9956.
BBC WM 95.6.
So many good talking points to kick around this morning. We're going to talk about e-cigarettes before too long. If you're a vapor, I'd love to hear from you on the show today. And don't forget, coming up on BBC WM this afternoon, a great afternoon of sport. Live commentary of Albion away at Southampton with Franksy and Rigo. Full coverage too of Brighton against Blues in the Championship, and in League One, Wolves against Preston and Tranmere against Walsall. Good luck to all of our teams this afternoon. Been talking as well this morning, in case you're wondering, by the way, where Iain Lee is. Iain's taken sick today, so I'm Adrian Goldberg sitting in for Iain. I'm here during the week between 9 and 12, Monday to Friday. And as I've said before, there are people who I know listen to the show but don't get the chance to call during the week, or maybe don't even get to hear me at all Monday to Friday. If you're one of those people, I'd especially love to hear from you today, because this is your chance to join in our big debate on BBC WM, talking about whether there's a crisis of trust in the police after an officer has admitted lying in the Andrew Mitchell Plebgate affair. Tom Watson, a Labour MP, an opposition MP to Andrew Mitchell, has called this morning for Andrew Mitchell to be reinstated in his job as Foreign Secretary. And one of the biggest debates we've had on BBC WM this week has been about the Benefit Street documentary shown on Channel 4, and suggestions really, in light of all of the hubbub and all of the furore around Benefit Street, that as a society now, we kind of think it's OK to kick the unemployed, OK to kick those who are on benefits. Is that how it feels to you, I wonder? Have we legitimised the demonisation of the poorest members of our society? Or when you watch Benefit Street, do you think, well, some of those people, in terms of adverse comments, deserve everything they get? 03453 00 9956 or text 81333. Start your message with WM. Let's speak to Dot in Sally Oak. Good morning, Dot. How are you?
Good morning, Adrian.
You OK?
What a lovely bonus.
Well,
Saturday morning as well.
You might say that.
Oh,
I've been dragged from my bed. I was dragged from my bed, Dot.
Oh, I don't believe that. Come on. It's lovely for us, isn't it? Bonus for us.
Lovely. Yeah, I love being on air. Go on.
I know you do, and I love you to be on air too.
Well, thank you.
Now, what about this arrogant individual? I can't even bring myself to say his name. Adrian, a man on a push bike. Why was he so insistent on going through a double gate? Why? I don't understand. If he was in a car, yes, you need a gate, double gate. He was on a bloody... Oh, sorry, Adrian, sorry.
It's all right.
He was on a push bike, Adrian. Those gates was going to come wide open for him to go through. What about the security side? Somebody in a car could have rammed straight through those gates. Or am I wandering?
No, I mean, no, and I suppose that would be the security argument against him. Yeah. I mean, And it got a bit heated. Andrew Mitchell swore, and he admits that he swore, used the F word in relation to the police officers. Not wise. And if he was going to an area where he shouldn't have been, A, he shouldn't have pressed the point, and B, he certainly shouldn't have sworn at a police officer.
So, but to me, to be so persistent in going through a double gate and you're on a push bike, that to me endorses the arrogance. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Adrian, I just...
But I suppose the argument is that even if Andrew Mitchell was arrogant, even if he was foolish to try and go through a security gate where he shouldn't have done, would that in itself have cost him his job? And the answer to that probably, Dot, is no. It might have been a bit of a scandal, a bit of a hoo-ha for a couple of days. What cost him his job was this reference to the word pleb, a reference which I think we can safely now say he never made.
But don't you think it's gone on too long, Adrian? Now, I mean, it's like a Brian Ricks farce. I mean, it's a lot to me, Adrian. It's a great big ton of bovine excrement. And it really is. I mean, there's so much more important things in this country. We've got to get strong. We've got to do the right thing by the people. We don't worry about whether you want to go through a double gate or a single gate. Throw the damn bike over the top of the gate and just get on with life.
OK, so you're not altogether sympathetic to Andrew Mitchell. I think it's fair to say, Dot, in Selly Oak. Thank you. Very interesting debate we had as well with the daughter of Kevin Roberts, a man who is now being allowed out for several hours at a time from Rayside Clinic in Rubery. This is a man who battered his own mother to death in 2005. He's diagnosed schizophrenic. Ian in Wolverhampton says, how odd to hear about a place like Rayside in the news. We never hear about the assaults on nurses in such hospitals. We never hear about the lawyers supporting false claims against the nurses. We never hear about the lack of proper funding for staff. We never hear tributes to the dedicated staff who work there 24/7. Well, Ian in Wolverhampton, I'll throw it over to you, really. You're probably right. We probably don't talk about these psychiatric clinics enough and the work that goes on in them. But if somebody wants to tell us about the work that goes on in them, a place like Rayside or any of our mental health institutions, I do think this is a very difficult case, because when you look at the crime and indeed the other crimes that Kevin Roberts committed, I must say that the idea that he might be out on the streets again here in the West Midlands is, on the face of it, a little bit frightening, isn't it? And his daughter said he just knows how to work the system. On the other hand, we have very highly qualified psychiatrists, people in the medical profession who we hope and we trust know what they're doing. If they're saying that he's safe to be out on the street for a few hours again, is there an element of having to say, well, we have to trust them? They know their job better than we do. I don't know, but it does concern me, I'll be honest with you. But if you want to talk about that, feel free. I'm very happy to talk about the quality and the range of psychiatric services in the West Midlands, whether you're somebody who uses those services as a patient, whether you work there or whether a family member works at one of those places. 03453 009956. Dave in Sutton on the text says, I've met Andrew Mitchell. He's a thoroughly decent person. He does a lot for charity and his country. If he did call the officer a pleb, then so be it. A lot worse is said on a daily basis. For example, drive to work with me and hear what I call other drivers. It makes the word pleb sound like something out of a nursery rhyme. Carl in Tamworth says, Andrew Mitchell should get his job back. I came on WM twice and said the police were lying, and I've been proved right. I know they lie. I've seen it many times during my previous employment with them. Carl in Tamworth, thank you. Let's speak to Ranjit in Oldbury. Hello, Ranjit. How are you?
Hi, mate. You all right?
Yeah, go on, mate.
Yeah, I want to talk about the benefits, but I want to make a comment about the police.
Yeah.
When we was growing up in the 80s, we used to have a phrase which said, help the police, beat yourself up. Yeah, save them giving anybody a kick-in. And then in the...
Yeah, but I mean, come on, people can say things, right? You know, the police didn't routinely beat people up in the 80s any more than they do today.
No, they don't beat them up today, but they did in the 80s. You've only got to speak to old Irish men, yeah, who were probably intoxicated on a Saturday night around the Digbeth area. When they got caught, they took them to the police stations and they give them a kicking for no reason. That used to happen, and as much as we want to deny it, it did happen, and to a lot of probably black people as well. It wasn't a race thing, it was just something that the coppers did. And then in this 86, you had the serious crime squad that was disbanded for stitching people up. So institutionally, they all stick together.
So Ranjit, I mean, I'm asking questions now about policing culture and a crisis in confidence. As I say, I know that the jury who heard the verdict in the Mark Duggan case said that he was lawfully killed, even though he was a man who didn't have a gun on him at the time when he was shot dead by the police. I've mentioned Hillsborough. A lot of the shenanigans surrounding Hillsborough have only come to light in recent years. And obviously now we've got a police officer admittedly lying over Plebgate. So I'm saying if we've got a crisis of confidence and trust in the police now, you're saying you've always had one. You've never trusted the police.
No, I wouldn't go as far as never trusted them. Things evolve, right, and then they have to make different precautions to protect themselves. It's like if you was going to be investigated by somebody from BBC Radio Stoke, yeah, what they're going to do is they're going to be sympathetic towards you. And as I spoke to somebody, I think it was yourself, the IPCC is not independent, and that's the main
This
problem.
is the police watchdog, the IPCC. Yeah.
What I want to talk about the benefit street and that.
Yeah.
What's happening is governments of today are demonising everybody other than themselves. I mean, if I was going to demonise anybody, I would demonise the greedy bankers that have brought this country down onto his knees. What's happening is the government of today is creating a division on blaming other people. Like the people who are working will blame the unemployed. The unemployed will blame the immigrants because they've got their jobs. So what's happening is the initial argument that starts is, why haven't I got enough money to live on? Why haven't I got a job? Why is the country down on its knees? So what they do is blame everybody else and cause division within the country, and that's got to stop. And now even Europe started calling Cameron slightly racist. The Polish Prime Minister's had a go at him. You know, some other people are listening now to what he's actually saying.
Ranjit, good to hear from you. Thanks for joining in on BBC WM today. It's 19 minutes to 11. Adrian Goldberg with you. Going to be talking a little later about disability and cuts to services in one part of the West Midlands. Going to be talking about e-cigs as well. I don't know if you're a vapor. There's a big protest going on today in Birmingham involving those who smoke e-cigarettes. So if you can tell me what the attraction is, what the fun is of smoking an e-cigarette, I'd love to hear from you today. It's 18 minutes to 11. Adrian Goldberg in for Iain Lee. If you don't hear me normally in this slot, that's because it's Iain's show, but I am usually here between 9 and 12. Monday to Friday on BBC WM with the West Midlands biggest phone-in. So if you don't get to hear that, or if you hear that but you don't get to phone in maybe because you're at work, today's your chance to have your say on our big debate, talking about the Benefit Street, the documentary on Channel 4, and whether that has encouraged people, amongst other things, to demonise the unemployed, whether as a society we regard those on benefits as scroungers, and whether we kind of feel entitled to do that because of programmes like Benefit Street, or whether they actually justify the bad name that some benefits claimants have, and a crisis of trust, a crisis of confidence in the police after the Mark Duggan verdict and after a police officer admitted lying over Andrew Mitchell and the Plebgate affair. Asking the question this morning, do you have a crisis of confidence in the police yourself? And should Andrew Mitchell be given his job back? 03453 00 9956.
Adrian Goldberg on BBC WM
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Now it's 16 minutes to 11, and it's exactly, it will be in 3 seconds' time, exactly 30 years to the second since this tune was banned by BBC Radio. sounds rude to me, doesn't it? I just wonder about the songs that you can remember that have been banned on the radio. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax. As I say, still sounds pretty rude if you listen quite hard to the lyrics. Let's speak to Matt Grimes, degree leader for music industries at Birmingham City University. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Good morning, Adrian. How are you?
I'm all right. Now, I know we live in an age of Miley Cyrus and twerking and sitting naked astride a wrecking ball, but even by today's standards, Relax is a very rude song, I think.
Well, it depends how you read it, Adrian.
Does it?
Well, I do.
I think it's full of single entendres myself, Matt, but there we go.
Well, I think this was one of the issues that surrounded the controversy around the song itself, wasn't it? Because, as you probably remember, Mike Reid was the one who said, I'm not going to play this on my show. You know, he found the lyrics rather distasteful, sexually suggestive, and he wasn't particularly keen on the graphical images on the record sleeve itself. And he said, I'm not going to play this on my show. And like anything, you know, if you highlight something that people can't have or can't get, the first thing they're going to do is to go out and find out what all the fuss is about. This song, when it entered the charts, entered it very, very lowly and was a very, very slow climber until that moment when Mike Reid, raised the issue of its sexually suggestive lyrics. And of course, at that time, loads of young people went out into the local record shops, and within a week or two, it was at number one.
Matt, we'll speak more to you in a moment. The time now on BBC WM is 11:15. Let's get the latest travel now on BBC WM 95.6 with Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Adrian. As you head to Cannock, we're getting reports of an accident on Ascot Drive at Whitby Way. Police on the way to the scene. Officers also on the way to the A41 in the Albrighton area, where Holyhead Road has reportedly been a bit of a prang around there as well. Into the centre of Birmingham, where it's looking rather congested through Kings Heath, going towards the Middleway, the A435. And on Hagley Road, it's picked up a bit, but still some slight congestion approaching Five Ways Island. As temporary lights and new road layout at Snow Hill Queensway by St Chad's and near the station because of tram extension work. And Catherine de Barnes in Solihull, Henwood Lane is still blocked because of flooding. Your matchday travel sees Baggies fans heading to Southampton down the M40, the A34 and the M3. It's a good 3-hour journey. Those are all those routes flowing freely so far. Blues fans are going to Brighton, again down the M40 and then to the M25, round to the M23. Those roads also looking fine so far today. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 Travel 08453 002288.
Who's driving you home tonight?
You don't think when you're drunk. You just decide you're going home and getting the closest taxi to get home.
Inside Out investigates the bogus taxi drivers prowling the streets.
The first thing I can remember was him saying that he thought that I should kiss him, and he started kissing my face and on my lips.
Avoid a nightmare end to a night on the tiles. Watch Inside Out, Monday, 7:30 on BBC One.
12 minutes to 11 on BBC WM. Adrian Goldberg here, in for Ian, who was taken sick a little earlier on. Get well soon, Ian Lees. And a double dose of Goldie today, because I'll be doing early kick-off in a bit as well. Getting your calls, your comments this morning about the week's big talking points. We've been talking today about Benefit Street, the documentary, the Channel 4 show based on James Turner Street on Winson Green in Birmingham. And just quite a few people coming out in the last couple of days after the row around that particular programme saying, hold on a minute, aren't we just now feeling entitled to kick the unemployed when they're down, kicking benefits claimants when they're down? Do you think there's a little bit about that around Benefit Street and the whole row that's surrounding it at the moment, that somehow people feel entitled to kick the weakest and most vulnerable members of society, those who don't have work and who do need our help just to get by? Talking more about Plebgate as well, and whether you have a crisis of confidence in the police. In the last few days, we've had the Mark Duggan verdict, where a man was shot dead on the streets of our capital city, unarmed by a police officer. He was lawfully killed in the eyes of the jury, but many people who called me on the show this week said, hold on a minute, that just doesn't sound sound right. Many listeners to BBC WM believing that Mark Duggan was executed, even though the jury disagreed with that verdict. And now we have a police officer admitting he lied about Andrew Mitchell. So do we have a crisis of confidence in our cops? And should Andrew Mitchell get his job back? 03453 00 9956, or you can text me on 81333. Start your message with WM. Also mention the fact that we're now 30 years to the day since Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax was banned by the BBC. Got Matt Grimes with us talking about this. He's the degree leader for music industries at Birmingham City University. I just wonder about the other tunes that have been banned as well. If you've got any names, any songs you want to suggest to us that were banned in their day, and whether they're still rude now. Drop me a text to 81333. Start your message with WM. Matt, you talked about Relax and Mike Reid, the Radio 1 DJ. Yeah. He effectively, in seeking to disassociate himself from it, he gave it the oxygen of publicity, didn't he?
Well, they say any publicity is good publicity. I think it was Barnum the circus owner that said that, and this is a really good case of exactly that. You draw attention to something, and people are going to go and find out about it. So I think he did the band a massive favour. I think there was something as well, though, about the video. We were just coming into the era, weren't we, when videos could first be watched. Well, that's right. Yeah, it was the MTV sort of era.
Yeah, just the... And, you know, Frankie Goes to Hollywood had a very sort of overt gay appearance. There was lots of leather, loads of moustaches. I'm sure, again, in view of the sensibilities of the time, that would have offended people and played into this whole outrage around the song. Absolutely. I mean, I think what's interesting, certainly with the video, was that the original video that was produced by them was, in the end, unbroadcastable. You know, the broadcasting agencies wouldn't put it out there because it was extremely sexually suggestive. And then they had to do another edit or another video for broadcast. And I think this is quite a common thing that's happening now with a lot of contemporary music. So you'll find that there'll be the song that the artist wants to make, which they want to express themselves openly and freely, and I think that's their right, and they should be able to do that. But of course, there's treading a fine line then between what they want to do and what their record company wants them to do, because obviously record companies want to get maximum airplay to help promote the records and generate their income streams. And as a result of that, you find now there's lots of radio edits, or there'll be songs where they modify or alter the lyrics to enable it to be played, you know, during daytime playlists. Yeah, and it is a difficult one because, I mean, my kids love their music. You know, I've got girls who are 9 and 6, and I'll sometimes download tracks for them that they might have heard on the radio, and unless you're careful and particularly choose the radio edit, and I have made this mistake myself, you can download, you know, a very catchy pop tune, but not the radio edit, but the sweary non-radio edit. I think that's every radio DJ's nightmare, isn't it? When they get the song they're going to play and realise they played the wrong version or the less appropriate version. But yeah, I think nowadays with the availability of music online on various platforms, either downloads or streams, that you know, people can go out and seek out the explicit versions of popular songs that they won't get to hear on the radio or perhaps here on television. Yeah, I'm just trying to think the level of shock, though. Now, most of the shock in music seems these days, and the reason why tracks are banned from daytime radio anyway, is swear words. It's not really much about the content, it's just they're swear words. Yeah, I mean, I think there is, but I think also there are some songs, you know, it could be seen there are songs that do have content that perhaps aren't particularly progressive or helpful. I mean, I know recently some universities around the UK banned Robin Thicke's song "Blurred Lines." Yeah, no, that's true. The one that caused the Twerkgate affair. Yes. Because they considered it to be very demeaning towards women. It put back the whole clock about, put the feminism clock back about 20 years, and you know, so I think we have to look a little bit deeper than just perhaps the swear word. No, that's a really good example, actually, Matt, isn't it, of a song that, in fact, it isn't. There isn't any swearing in Robin Thicke's song, or at least that's not what the controversy is about. There are two versions of the video, one of which is relatively family friendly, the other of which has got, blatant nudity and some very explicit messages in it. And according to the critics, anyway, I'm not sure I agree with the critics. I think it's still up for grabs. perhaps, but the critics would argue that it's a song that sort of it encourages the idea that when a woman says no, really, she means yes, and it's sort of a green light for rapists.
Well, that's right, and this was the big discussion and argument around that, and this is why a number of universities, certainly in the UK, said we're not having this song played at our student union events, we're not having it anywhere on the campus. And I think they've got a case there for it. I think they've got a very strong argument. However, censorship is a very personal thing, isn't it? As we know that, what might be I might deem as inappropriate, other people might say, well, actually, I can't see anything wrong with that.
Matt, stay there if you would. John's in Redditch wants to talk about this. Hello, John. How are you?
Yes, good morning, Adrian.
Yeah, hello, mate. Go on.
Do you recall Lance Percival's song many years ago called "The Maharaja of Brum" being banned? It was a
the Maharaja of what?
The Maharaja of Brum.
No.
That was banned. It was a very light-hearted song.
Yes,
but I think it was its racist connotations was in the song. Light-hearted though it was, and that got banned. Yeah, the Maharaja of Brum.
We'll try and check it out. I don't know whether we can play it, John. It might still be banned. But when was that? When was that released, John?
Oh, God. Let me think. Oh, it could have been 70s-ish. Circa. I'm not really. It's that long ago, Adrian.
But it had a bit of a sort of a racist overtone, anyway.
Yes, it was only light-hearted. I have a notion.
Light-hearted racism.
and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but was there a Madonna song band called "Justify My Love for You"? Was that banned as well? I can't remember.
I don't know. Matt, I'm just trying to think. Do you know this Maharaja of Brum by Lance Percival, for starters?
I'm afraid I don't, Adrian. But interesting, I think John raises a point that actually this whole idea of music censorship actually has a very, very long history. You might be surprised to find out that George Formby's "When I'm Cleaning Windows" was initially banned from radio airplay because the lyrics of the song were considered to be smutty.
So when he's cleaning windows, is there a particular line in it? Does he talk about?
He talks about looking through people's windows and seeing what these people are up to and what young ladies are up to. And there's also a line about the bride and the bridegroom. He'd rather have the bridegroom's job. Not particularly explicit, but I mean, considering that was 1940.
Yes, and what about his little stick of Blackpool Rock?
The jury's out on that one.
Yeah, listen to this, Matt. Listen to this, John.
Je t'aime, oh oui, je t'aime.
Moi non plus.
Oh mon amour.
Comme la vague.
What he's saying is, you forgot the milk again. I've got my cornflakes here and there's no milk. That's what he's saying, isn't it? No, that was banned, wasn't it, for years, Matt?
It was, yeah.
Je t'aime by Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin. I don't know why. Yeah, Jane Birkin and yeah. Why would they have banned that?
You tell me. and I think this is the big debate, isn't it, around censorship? As I say, one person might find something completely inappropriate and offensive, and others might think, well, actually, I can't see anything wrong with it. I mean, I think what's interesting now with the whole idea around censorship is that, I mean, it's become less commonplace now because of the availability of music online. But, I mean, for example, during the Gulf conflict, the BBC and, I believe, Clear Channel, which is an American radio network, had a list of songs that they deemed to be inappropriate for airplay during the Gulf War. Songs such as War by Edwin Starr and Give Peace a Chance by the Plastic Ono Band. Rock the Casbah by The Clash, Walk Like an Egyptian, these songs that were deemed to be completely inappropriate. So, it's moved away from an outright ban and censorship to lists being drawn up for songs that shouldn't be played at particular moments or particular times.
Yeah, Matt, a fascinating conversation, this area of what's banned and what's not and why. Thanks for joining us. Thanks also to John in Redditch. Matt Grimes there, degree leader for music industries at Birmingham City University. I'm very happy to explore this a little bit more. I love me music, as you know, and the stuff that has been banned for one reason or another, and whether even today that ban might be considered justifiable. I'm not a prude, but actually I think, you don't really have to read too far beneath the surface of Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax. That is a supremely rude song, and it is arguably ruder than most of the stuff today that's banned on the radio. That Blurred Lines song as well, by Robin Thicke, which, as we heard our guest say there, has been banned from some university campuses, I think including some here in the West Midlands. Sheila in Withall says, Adge Cutler and the Wurzels had a song called Twice Daily banned. It seems very mild now. I confess I don't know that one, Sheila in Withall. If anybody's got a copy of that, they can send it to us as an MP3 or as a WAV. We'll have a listen to that and maybe see if we can play it. Adge Cutler and the Wurzels, Twice Daily. So keep them coming, the songs that were banned and why, Benefit Street, Plebgate, and whether Andrew Mitchell should get his job back. You can give us a call on 03453 00 9956.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
It's 11 o'clock. My name's Adrian Goldberg. Welcome to BBC WM. I'm in for Iain Lee this morning, who has taken sick. In the next hour, we're going to be talking about e-cigarettes. So if you are a vapor, I'd love to hear from you this morning about the attraction of e-cigarettes. Been talking to on the 30th anniversary of the banning of Frankie Goes to Hollywood Relax about the songs that have been banned. Why have they been banned? And should they have been banned? Of course, famously, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, but also Je T'aime, we were just listening to as well. Keep your comments coming on 03453 00 9956. We'll talk more too about Plebgate and your confidence in the police after a police officer has admitted lying in the Andrew Mitchell affair. Should Mitchell now get his job back? And has Benefit Street, the Channel 4 documentary, allowed people unfairly to give the unemployed a metaphorical kicking? 03453 00 9956. Let's get the news with Kevin Pashby.
Good morning. It's emerged a West Midlands grandmother who killed herself and left a letter blaming the government's spare room subsidy would have been exempt and eligible for a refund. Stephanie Bottrill from Kingsirth was due to leave her 3-bedroom home because her benefits were being cut as she had spare bedrooms. It's been revealed this week an error in the legislation means working-age tenants in social housing who've occupied the same house since 1996 are exempt from the tax. David Jameson is the leader of the Labour group on Solihull Council. He's been talking to BBC WM this morning.
What the government has done is it's been in a stampede to say, look how tough we are on benefit, look how tough we are on people on low pay. And what they've forgotten is that there's some extremely sad cases there of people who are desperate and have very, very low income.
The Defence Secretary Philip Hammond says claims the Army's struggling to find new recruits is nonsense. A new campaign's being launched to find more regular and part-time soldiers. It comes at a time when the Ministry of Defence is reducing the size of the regular Army while at the same time increasing the number of reservists. A future Labour government would make teachers in England apply for a licence every few years in order to work in state schools. The party says the move would help improve standards. In 2012, the coalition gave heads the ability to sack underperforming staff within a term and introduced a new assessment regime. And auditions are being held later ahead of a new series of Peaky Blinders, the BBC gangster drama based in Birmingham. The programme's looking for young white men aged between 13 and 19. There's also black and mixed race roles open to males between the ages of 15 and 17. Jamie Glazebrook is one of the show's executive producers.
The central roles that we're looking for are absolutely cracking roles that form a real part in the Shelby family story, the Peaky Blinders story, as they kind of expand their enterprise and move into the roaring 20s.
Football now. West Bromwich Albion head to Southampton later with their new boss, Pepe Mel, looking on from the stands before taking full control next week. Wolves take on Preston at Molineux. Walsall travel to Tranmere, whilst Birmingham City's 10-match unbeaten run in the Championship is sure to come under close scrutiny at Brighton. Manager Lee Clark's lost 3 low knees and a centre-back since the festive period and is struggling to bring in fresh blood. Even so, Clark goes into the game in good spirits.
We've worked extremely hard this week on stopping them, but also being a threat with the ball, because certainly in the away games we've been very productive. I'm going there very confident. I'm looking forward to seeing the lads. I hope they're as eager as I am to see them, because I think this is a great opportunity for these lads to say to me that I don't need to make any more phone calls trying to bring players in.
We'll have full coverage of this afternoon's football here on BBC WM for you from 2 o'clock, with our build-up starting at midday with early kick-off. Taking a look at the weather, dry and sunny, light winds today, highs of 8 Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit. Staying dry tonight but turning cold, lows down to -2, 28 Fahrenheit. Sunday's looking cold to start with sunny spells and showers. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The Voice. The Voice.
The Voice.
The Voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
No matter where you live, so much crime. But I still have to make ends meet. Don't always just get their wages. They get expenses on top of it.
Adrian Goldberg.
Monday to Friday.
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Good morning, it's Adrian Goldberg here on BBC WM, in for Iain Lee, who's a little bit poorly. Thanks for being with us all the same. I'll be with you on this show until 12 and then be building up to the football from 12 to 2 with early kick-off. So if you want to talk about the day and the week's big talking points, you have, my friends, precisely 55 minutes to get your calls in. We're going to have some fantastic little debates in this next hour. We're going to talk about e-cigarettes. The European Union considering placing e-cigarettes in the medicines category, which could make it harder for manufacturers and for people to buy them. So how important are e-cigarettes to you? Are you one of those who's been converted to the method of vaping rather than smoking? What would it be like for you if you couldn't have your e-cigarette? Give us a call, 03453 00 9956. Been talking as well in the last few minutes about today being the 30th anniversary of the banning by the BBC of Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Relax. Just wondering what tunes you think from memory have been banned, why they were banned, and whether they're still shocking today. When I'm cleaning windows, the famous George Formby song was banned once by the BBC, and people have talked more recently about Blurred Lines, the Robin Thicke song, being banned because in the eyes of some people it encourages date rape. So I'll throw it over to you. What tunes have been banned, and were those bans justified? 03453 00 9956, or text me on 81333. Start your message with WM.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 00 9956.
BBC WM 95.6.
And a couple of other of our debates as well, still bouncing around from early. You might want to add your voice on. We've been talking about Andrew Mitchell and Plebgate. Of course, a police officer has admitted lying in the Plebgate affair. He awaits sentence, but there have been more than one occasion recently when the police's integrity has been called into question, and PC Keith Wallace has now admitted in court to falsely claiming to have witnessed a row between Andrew Mitchell, the then Foreign Secretary, not the Foreign Secretary, the Minister for Overseas Trade, and Sutton Coldfield MP, who was forced to resign. So our question is, should Andrew Mitchell now get his job back? And have you got a crisis of confidence in the police? 03453 00 9956. And if you weren't able to talk during the week about Benefit Street, which has aroused so much comment on BBC WM, feel free to do so now. Has Benefit Street, which is based on James Turner Street in Birmingham in Winson Green, has it given the green light to those who want to metaphorically give all benefits claimants a kicking? Has it sort of demonised the benefit claimant? 03453 00 9956. Let's speak to Nick in Wilnecote. Hello, Nick. How are you, mate?
Hello, Adrian, mate.
Yeah, go on, mate.
I was a landlord in James Turner Street.
All right.
And, in fact, the main property in the programme is number 99, which is the one with white D in it.
Yeah.
It's the brown double-glazed windows. I spent fortunes. I had 9 properties in that road. And I thought I was a good landlord. And I spent, thousands. And I couldn't get someone that worked to rent a property in that area.
So is that the kind of prescription you were trying to put on it, that you wanted somebody who was in a job, yeah?
I was trying to get decent working people and an affordable rent. I'm not one of those extortionate landlords. And I couldn't get anyone that worked to live in the properties. I had 9 properties in that road. And also, where the road turns, you'll see on the programme, it changes into Beaton Road.
Yeah.
And I had property there as well. And had the same problem. And yet I was born in Willis Road, which is 2 roads away. And I remember that area being looked after and the gardens all nice. And even going back 15 years when I first bought round there, the area was going down.
It's a really tough situation, isn't it, Nick? Because, you know, we know that there are people who, through no fault of their own, are on benefits. People who might want to work, people who are trying to work, either fallen on hard times in their life and just can't get a job or have had difficulties. You know, and those people have got to live somewhere, haven't they?
That's right. And what I was doing was providing good property. I had all new double glazed on the properties and central heating. And I think you can be per agent and still live in a decent way. And I was finding that some of the properties, when I turn up to inspect them, there was one property had 8 mattresses on the floor. And obviously they'd got all sorts of different people there. And the contracts were just for specific people and families in those properties. They'd end up where there was something like 14 people in some of them. And it makes you wonder what's happening.
It's weird, isn't it, how some areas do just go downhill. And I'm never sure what contributes to it, what makes it happen. But I think when rot sets into an area, it does set in very quickly. And listeners who've heard me say this before will, I hope, forgive me. But I grew up in a block of council flats in Northfield. And these flats had only been put up in the late 50s. You know, they weren't crumbling relics or anything. And lots of people like my mum and dad loved them. You know, there was sort of hot water on tap, which many of the people living in those flats had never had before. And and I think you had to be a bit of a model tenant elsewhere to get into those flats. And because they were so good and so well cared for, at some point in the mid-70s, Birmingham City Council said, we'll put a few problem families in there.
Yeah,
because
and that can destroy a whole road and an area.
Yeah, and the idea was that those people would be brought up to the standard of the rest.
No, they drag it down to their level.
And that sadly is what happened. And within about 4 or 5 years, those flats, which had only been built in the late 50s, had been demolished. They didn't stand for 20 years, those flats. No. It's just incredible.
Well, what I ended up doing, because of the different problems and sort of like several mattresses in different rooms, I ended up taking a contract on with Haringey Council, as you know, London way.
Yeah.
And it was to be honest, the rent was, I was getting $5.50 on the contract a month for every property. With that deal, obviously, but it wasn't a concern to me because I looked after them anyway. But I had to provide central heating. Haringey Council actually paid all the bills, which meant in the summer I was actually sweating, doing a repair in the one property in James Turner Street. And it was June, I remember it very well. And the sweat was dripping off me, and I was thinking, the sun's out, yeah, but it's not that hot. And then I was above the radiator working on a window, and the heating was still on. And that was because they don't pay a bill. So I was permanently getting, I had one lad who kept going out to repair the boilers. They never turned the boilers off, and obviously because they're not paying the bills. It was all in with this contract. And they had food dropped to them every Monday and Tuesday. New toothbrushes, soaps, 2 boxes. And what I'm getting at is they found out that these were black cabs bringing these people from Leeds, London. These black cab drivers were actually smiling and couldn't stop laughing. Those bills must have been gastronomic. And those taxis weren't even full. there was one young girl got out with a baby. Now these cabs, why didn't they fill the cabs if they're paying mad money to, you know? And anyway, I was meeting the people at the property, and then everything was okay. Then I found out then that they were bringing all the friends in from abroad, and they were squatting in the properties. The next thing they done, they found out that if they complained about the property enough, they would get a brand new house. So they started to damage the properties. And I used to look after the neighbours, and I'd had my number and say, give me a call if there's any problems, for their benefit as well. I had a call one day from next door to James Turner Street, which was the lady White D in the programme, which is number 99. The girl that lived next door phoned me, and she said, he's smashing the ceiling in the front room.
And this, we should be clear here, this is not White D, this is a resident, a tenant...
where White D lives.
Yeah, a tenant prior to there, anyway.
In White D's house, at the time.
Yeah.
And he's smashing the roof in with a broom. Now, that is when I found out that they were systematically damaging the properties. Now, with their religion and different things went on, I can't pinpoint it, I won't on the radio, but they stand on the toilet. So they don't sit on them. And they don't touch the handle to flush the toilet. They use the foot.
Yeah, I don't know if that'd be any kind of religious requirement.
I think they said it was something to do with...
it might be a cultural thing. I don't think it'd be a religious thing.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
So the toilets were permanently being repaired because they were loose. They stood on them.
So, Nick, is the long and short of this that you got out of the landlord game then?
Well, I couldn't find anyone that worked to pay the rent, to rent the properties round in that area. And this is going back from 15 years up till recently. I sold up just before the bust and then cashed in. And it was 7-8 years back when I sold the last one in that area. But the bottom line is, anyone that worked would not live in that area, would not rent a property.
Well, Nick, I know from talking to people on James Turner Street this week, there are people in James Turner Street who are working, a good number of them as well, and a lot of people have raised questions about the statistics, claiming that 90% of people in James Turner Street are on benefits. Many of the people in James Turner Street, in fact, are at work. It's just gone 11:15. Let's get the latest travel with Liz.
Thank you, Adrian. As you head to Cannock, reportedly this accident partially blocking Ascot Drive at Whitby Way. It's looking a bit busy as you head in and out of Birmingham, particularly through Selly Oak and through Kings Heath. Better news in the A41 up around Albright, and that accident's been quickly cleared out of the way. In the centre of Birmingham, just be mindful of the new road layout and temporary lights by Snow Hill Queensway, the station and St Chad's. It's all in connection with the tram extension work going on. Your match day travel sees Baggies fans heading off to Southampton. The M40 is looking okay, as probably the best route to go. Then the A34 and the M3. No reported delays and problems around there. Birmingham fans are going to Brighton, again down the M40 as far as the M25, and then scoot round London to the M23 junction at junction 7. That's all looking okay as well. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
Villa, Wolves, Blues.
Tamworth, Walsall, football news.
Signing, sackings,
Gossip, rumour.
and exclusive interviews.
Phone-ins, rantings.
Back the board. Did you see the one he scored?
Call now.
Do your best
To get that offside off your chest.
Live matches from the ground.
Commentaries with perfect sound.
Every goal and every save.
On FM, not just medium wave.
The voice.
The voice.
The voice. The voice.
The voice.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country. BBC WM 95.6.
It's 18 minutes past 11. Adrian Goldberg with you. Keith's in Northfield. Hello, Keith.
How do you do?
Hello, mate.
A record that was banned, Jasper Cabot's Magic Roundabout.
Oh, yeah, that was the other side of Funky Moped, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the original popularity of the Magic Roundabout was for that song, but that was, and it got in the charts, but nobody could play it.
No.
Without being specific about the swear words, Keith, tell us about the song.
Well, there wasn't swear words. It was just the magic roundabout characters talking amongst each other, and it was the last thing that's on the record is Zebedee goes buying time for bed, and you've got Florence being the biggest in Toy Town, and Noddy should know. You know, it was that type of thing. It was funny more than swearing.
Yeah, I think from memory though, there was a bit of a swear word in it, wasn't there?
I can't. Oh, I'll have to put it on in a minute.
Well, I tell you, we won't be putting it on, Keith, because there is a lot of swearing in it, I tell you. And Dylan, for one, I mean, poor old Dylan gets into the swear word category. We can't be having that on BBC WM. But well remembered, Keith, thank you. The stuff that was banned, the songs that were deemed unfit for radio play. We've obviously had Frankie Goes to Hollywood, 30th anniversary of that being banned by the BBC. It wasn't a complete ban, because I know John Peel used to play it at night in defiance of his daytime Radio 1 colleagues. Dorothy's in Northfield. Morning, Dorothy. How are you? Hello, Dorothy. Dorothy, come on. You're on the radio. Hello, Dorothy. No, we've given Dorothy a fair few goes, haven't we now? BBC WM 1120.
Adrian Goldberg
on BBC WM
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Now, protests are taking place this morning across Europe, including one in Birmingham, to save the e-cigarette. The users of the devices, known as vapers, are meeting en masse to highlight the issue. Discussions are taking place in the European Parliament about whether e-cigarettes should be reclassified as a medicinal product. Let's get a word with Dave Malik, who's taking part in the Birmingham protest. Dave, good morning.
Hello there.
Whereabouts is the protest today?
It's just outside the mailbox.
Oh, right. Well, very handy from where I'm broadcasting from, I suppose.
Yes,
I mean, is this a bit of an EU scare story, though? Nobody's saying that the e-cigarettes are going to be banned, are they?
Well, basically, the e-cigarette, as we know it, will be. What's actually going to happen is that what they've said is that every device that we have at the moment will not be suitable for use.
Well, are they saying that, or are they just saying that they want to make sure that they test before people start smoking something that it's safe?
They are saying that, but they're ignoring the science that's already been done. Tests have been done and proven how safe e-cigarettes are at the moment compared to normal tobacco smoking.
Well, I mean, there are people who dispute the benefits of e-cigarettes as well. Your contention is then, Dave, that the European Union is trying to, ban them or just regulate them better?
No, we don't mind the regulation side of things. What we're trying to protest against, well, not protest against, what we're trying to say is that just basically listen to us, because we are not being listened to. We're not being heard. We don't mind the regulation of juices so that we know exactly what's in the juices, but the devices themselves are absolutely fine. The quality, the safety, the efficacy, there's no problem with them. But the juice themselves, we don't mind that being regulated.
What is in the juice, so to speak? Do you know what goes into it, Dave?
Well, yes, you get the PG, propylene glycol. You have BG.
What's that? What's that?
It's basically what you get if you go to a nightclub or a pub or something like that. You will have a fog machine. It's the same thing that goes into that, and it's harmless.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, the EU regulations or the EU proposals include provision for the regulation of e-cigarettes, and all that, as I understand it, that they want to do is regulate the number or the amount of nicotine that's being dosed each time you take in. Where's the harm in that?
Well, there's no harm in that, but what they're trying to do is reduce it to an amount that is less than what most people use. They're trying to bring it down to 20 milligrams. Now, a lot of people would use 24. The beauty of what we have at the moment is the fact that we can vary the different strengths of juice as and when we need it. And what they want to do is stop us from being able to do that.
OK, Dave, I'll throw it out to you. Dave Malik, thanks very much indeed for joining us. A little protest about e-cigarettes today and a suggestion of EU interference. Would it be such a bad thing, though, if we had a normal standard, a regular standard for e-cigarettes? I'm not sure I see the harm in that particularly. If you are a smoker, if I can use that word, vapor, really, somebody who uses e-cigarettes, how important are they to you? 03453 00 9956. Halida is in Stetchford. Halida, hello.
Hello, good morning, Adrian.
Are you a vapor then?
No, but I've noticed my son started smoking those e-cigarettes and his skin flared up really bad. So I think they need to be tested before they regulate it.
So, and you believe that the e-cigarette actually caused his skin to flare up?
There is some sort of chemicals in there which has affected my son's eczema.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are chemicals in there, aren't there? And I mean, this is the thing, isn't it, where I'm not sure about the extent of regulation. I mean, nobody's really saying that e-cigarettes are going to be banned, I don't think. The EU is just saying that we need to regulate them.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying ban it.
Yeah.
Right, it's people's personal choice. But there is something needs to be tested or regulated.
Yeah, I'm curious about this story. Halida, thanks for joining us this morning. Nikki Sinclair, who is a West Midlands MEP, has joined us on Twitter today, saying that she's with lots of vapors all standing together against the proposed EU interference. But you might call it interference. Somebody else might call it regulation. Don't we need to be sure that if you buy a product, that it's going to be safe for us and that there are certain limits within which it's going to operate? Is that interference or is that just sensible regulation? If you are a vapor, by the way, if you like your e-cigarettes, tell me what a difference they can make to you. Have you actually kicked smoking as a result of e-cigarettes? Does what happened? Do you just end up swapping smoking for e-cigarettes? You still then have the nicotine addiction, don't you? But you don't have all the smoke and the tar, I presume, if you have an e-cigarette. 03453 00 9956. Carol's in Yardley. Morning, Carol. How are you?
Good morning, Adrian.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you as well. You want to talk a bit about Benefit Street and this whole culture that we have of maybe demonising unemployed people? I don't know. What do you think?
Yes, I do think they are. I did watch the programme.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that lets some of them down, some of them as ex-addicts and struggling with life. Life is hard for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I think the language they used and the way they portrayed themselves, some of it wasn't very good and let them down. But not everybody is the same. I have just lost my job after nearly 20 years. And this government needs to get a grip. To actually get a job now, I've been on the show before and I've said about Benefits 39. National insurance is an insurance. If you haven't paid in, you don't get out. Now, I've paid in for 39 years, not just me, other people in my age group. I've got another 10 years to work yet. But the government are making it so hard. It's a bigger issue. It's hard. They're letting more people into the country. That's not racist, but at the end of the day, there's not jobs for us. So how can they get me at the job centre to sign an agreement, which I've already paid into for 40 years? My benefit will be stopped. If I don't do A, B, C and D, I have to do 5 things a week via the computer.
Yeah.
I haven't got computer access. It's all a farce. The government need to get their act together and they make all these silly rules and there's no jobs. They're letting more people in the country and there's no work for us. Where does it all end?
Well, it's a good question, Carol. You know, in your situation, then, having been made unemployed after 20 years, so you, as you say, you have to meet 5 sort of targets in order to qualify for your benefit.
I'll boost up your money, yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel other people regard you now as an unemployed person, as a benefits claimant?
Well, I'll tell you what I said without swearing when I went into the door. I said, please don't treat me like something you've just bought in on your shoe. And most of them are lovely there, but there's an underlying nastiness when you go. It's not a nice feeling. You are treated like a second-class citizen that you are. Some people, yes, do want to dold us. I'll say it honestly, there are people like that, but the majority of people are not, and they're decent, are put into the system. They want a little bit back when they need help and worry about getting work, and it puts you in a very vulnerable position. It's not a nice place to be in. And I just think that it could be made a bit easier. And I've always said, I'm a bit sort of, I don't know if you want to call it left-wing or a bit balmy, some people have called me. But look at the people that are taking the mick, that haven't put one penny in, whether it be for genuine reasons. There's always exceptions. We're all human. We've all got a right to exist best we can. But there are some that take the mick. Look at those that have put nothing into the system, to those like myself and other people. Oh, hang on. This gentleman, this lady's worked 39 years. They've paid full stamp for all these years. Let's make it a bit more easier. Not that you want to stay on the dole, but not put the same restrictions on us that they've put on people that don't want to work. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I do, Carol. I hear you very well and loud and clear. Carolyn Yardley, thank you very much indeed. Andy, quite rightly, correcting me, saying Andrew Mitchell was not Foreign Secretary. That was William Hague, he says. Mitchell was in charge of foreign aid only. And in my opinion, he made a mess of that post. I think it was called Minister of Foreign Aid and Development. Well, actually, it was the Minister for Overseas Development. That's the technical phrase for it. So you're right, Andy, to pick me up. I got it wrong. Andrew Mitchell was the Minister for Overseas Development, although I do think at the time of the Plebgate affair he would then become Chief Whip. Thank you for that, Andy. Bruce in Cannock says Channel 4 got it bang on the money with this programme. However, this street is no worse than many other streets littered around Birmingham and the Black Country. The tenants portrayed in this programme have been shown up for what they are: work-shy, immoral, idle, slovenly, unscrupulous, shameless people with no work ethic and a predilection to the easy option, i.e. life on the dole. Tell me, Adrian, how is it possible to be able to afford Sky TV, iPhone 4s, mobiles, a car, proper cigarettes at 35p a go and 42-inch plus widescreen TVs while you're on benefits? No, sorry, the game is up for people like this and others of their ilk, especially, and he mentions one character in particular who needs to have his collar felt by the police. Bruce in Cannock, thank you very much indeed for your email. adrian.goldberg@bbc.co.uk. Let's get a word with Douglas Hanson-Luke. He's a prospective parliamentary candidate for the Conservative Party in Walsall. Douglas, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Yeah, good. Lovely to speak to you, Douglas. And a couple of things I know you want to engage with us on today. Firstly, whether a programme like Benefits Street plays into the hands of those who would wish to cut benefits and somehow demonise the less well-off. Some people have said it plays into the Tory party's agenda.
Yeah, and I think if you watch a programme like that and you see people who are taking other people's money, people that are hard-working and paying taxes, it makes your blood boil, doesn't it? It drives you nuts. But that doesn't mean that we're not there to try to help people who genuinely need help. The point is, if people are cheating the system, there's less money for those people that really need it. So it's not about demonising people, it's about fairness.
I hear what you say about fairness, but I mean, would you accept that there is a commentary around Benefit Street in many newspapers which support the government, which support the Conservative Party in particular, which seeks to demonise those people?
I think demonise and evil and good are bad things, but I think it is wrong. I also think you can use the word evil for people that are taking other people's money. So if we're talking about the actual thing itself, taking other people's money, which is what you are doing if you're cheating on benefits, that's definitely wrong. I don't think we should make apologies about that. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't explore what the causes of the problems are and that we shouldn't stop helping those people that genuinely need it. So, no, it's not as simple as demonising or political propaganda. I do think it's as simple as fairness. And I think most people, it's not about papers that support the government. It's about people using their own common sense, watching a programme like that and saying, why am I working really hard just to pay taxes so that other people can have those 35p cigarettes?
We've heard earlier on in the programme that Stephanie Bottrill from Kingshurst, who was due to leave her three-bedroom house because her benefits were being cut because she had spare bedrooms. She was someone who complained about the spare room subsidy, a.k.a. the bedroom tax. It's emerged this morning that she was, in fact, exempt from the tax because she'd occupied the same home continuously since 1996. What's your comment on that, Douglas?
It's tragic. It's horrible. Not only was it unnecessary, but it's also very understandable. If people are older, if they've been living in these places for a long period of time, then I think you do get very anxious. My own parents are looking at moving to a smaller place. They don't really want to do it. They've got a spare room. And I know after you've been in a place for a very long time, it's a very emotional thing. And I think we as a government could have introduced this more slowly, more carefully. And it doesn't matter whether Stephanie got the message right or wrong. She was worried by it. So when we do make changes like this, which are for the good and they are about fairness and making sense, we need to make sure that we time it right, that we explain it clearly, and that we reduce anxiety as much as possible. I deeply regret what happened with Stephanie, and it is tragic that it was unnecessary, that she wasn't affected.
Yeah, and this so-called loophole, or really it's just a part of the regulations that say working-age tenants in social housing who've occupied the same home continuously since 1996 are exempt from the spare room subsidy or the council tax. I've got to say, I haven't heard any of your Conservative colleagues pointing out that loophole. So you accept, do you, that the Conservative Party have sold that policy poorly to the public?
I think the government could have communicated this better, that is for sure. But also what we should have communicated better are the facts of it. In a borough like Walsall, which I know a little bit about, there are 2,600 tenants below the age of 61 who don't have live-in carers who do have a spare room. And we're asking them to pay about £13 a week extra for those underused rooms. So that's 2,600 people. That's a lot of people who are impacted by this. But there are 3,700 people who are on the waiting list for housing. And we've also got to think about those people who are waiting for housing. It's not about supporting the rich or anything else. It's about thinking we've got to balance those on the waiting list with those people who've got bigger properties than they actually need. So all of these things are about fairness. When government does things, it never does it perfectly. And when we do things as a government, we've got to be as careful as we can be and explain it and offer time. So not an apology, because I think the government's got the right principles, but I think it could have been implemented better.
Douglas, thanks for joining us this morning. Douglas Hanson. Luke, talking about Stephanie Bottrell's case, the lady from Kingshurst who took her own life believing that she was being forced out of her three-bedroom house by the bedroom tax. It turns out that, in fact, she would have been exempt. Been talking about e-cigarettes as well this morning on Twitter. Lisa Lloyd says e-cigarettes are much safer than smoking, but they should be a pharmacy-only product. No one knows what ingredients are in them. Andy in Kings Norton says, when I wanted to give up smoking, my doctor would not give me e-cigs on the NHS. My GP said they have no real idea what's in them, advised me not to get them and gave me patches. Very interesting. You can text me on 81333. Start your message with WM. If you're an e-cig smoker, should they be more closely regulated? Richard's in Rubery. Hello, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, hello, Adrian. These e-cigarettes.
Yeah.
I just wondering, thinking about why this controversy have suddenly popped up, and I was thinking, I wonder if because they say a lot of people are beginning to stop smoking with these e-cigarettes. So that means the tobacco companies will be losing a lot of money. Also, the various governments in the EU will be losing tax revenue. So I'm just wondering what's going on behind the scenes, you know.
Well, I mean, according to those who are protesting in Birmingham today, they're saying that there's a threat to e-cigarettes and, you know, a suggestion maybe even that they'll be banned. My take on it is, and, you know, I've read a little bit around this morning, is that there is a suggestion from the European Union that they want to more closely regulate e-cigarettes so that the level of nicotine, for example, might be, you know, strictly regulated, and the other contents that go into e-cigarettes would be regulated. I'm just scratching my head and thinking, well, what's the problem with that? You know, don't we need governments to make sure that what we're taking in is safe?
Yeah, well, if you put it that way, which is safer though, smoking tobacco or smoking an e-cigarette?
Well, I think there's not much from what I can tell. Don't take this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist, but I think most people would acknowledge that smoking e-cigarettes generally is safer than smoking a cigarette because you don't have the tar and the tobacco. You still have the nicotine. Right, You're still feeding your nicotine addiction, but you don't have the rest of the nasty stuff that goes with smoking a cig.
It's being said, if tobacco had just been discovered, it wouldn't be allowed.
No, well, I think that's a very fair point, Richard. Thanks for joining us this morning. Carl's in Tamworth. Good morning, Carl. How are you?
Hi, actually not too bad, thank
Yeah,
you.
go on. Welcome to BBC WM. What you got to say, Carl?
About his benefit street, mate. A lot of these people involved in the programme, the people who live on the street, have been saying that it makes them look bad and shows them in a bad light. I just want to say, nobody put a gun to their head and said, act like animals. I mean, you know, the only people that made them look bad were themselves, with their language, their attitude, the drug taking, the theft, the attempted theft from the Asda wagon. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, you know, they've made themselves look bad. Can they not see that? How could any amount of editing or anything else make them look in a bad light? They did that themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you mentioned the language. That really struck me, you know. I mean, I'm not, you know, you would blush sometimes, I'm sure, Carl, to hear my language in some of the discussions. I was out last night, went on a pub crawl in Tipton with my mates and had a good night, by the way. Finished doing a bit of karaoke in the Fountain pub, the home of William Perry, the Tipton slasher. And I'm sure that some of my language and conversation last night, had it been broadcast and recorded, would have made a maiden aunt blush. But there's time and absolutely time and place. And a lot of the people in Benefit Street just seem to regard being potty-mouthed as just a normal part of routine life.
Well, that's right. I mean, it flowed like water. There was no thought about it. It just shows them the way they are. And it's not been edited in any way to in a different light. They came across as they are. And I just want to say another thing about jobs and finding work and that. I lost my job 4 years ago, and I was on the dole for no more than 4 months, and I've worked all my life. Now, the job centre didn't help me, really. The only thing they didn't tell me was that 36% of all vacancies go unadvertised. So I took it on myself to go out and start knocking a few doors, and that's how I found a job. I've had 3 jobs since then. I've took my pick. So if you get off your backside and go knock a few doors, who knows? You might find a job, and that's what some of them should be doing.
Carl, great to hear from. I'm going to let you low because your line's a little bit scratchy, but you've made some very interesting points. Thank you. Andy in Walsall says, regarding Benefit Street, you could check out the profile of Channel 4 boss Jay Hunt in today's Independent. This private school and Cambridge-educated executive has a track record for chasing ratings. Maybe Birmingham residents are just expendable media fodder in the ugly, ongoing political drift towards a more selfish, racist and isolationist national wasteland. Christine in Birmingham says, with regard to these songs with rude lyrics and other suggestive themes, she says all ambiguous songs should be banned, but then should most of TV programmes and magazines. All are promoting unholiness, impurity and all offensive to God and the commandments. Then we wonder why we have mixed up children, youth and society. We need to start living the commandments. Look at lovely films like Pollyanna, The Sound of Music, Meet Me in St. Louis, all beautiful with a purity that all of the family can view without offence to God. Christine in Birmingham, thank you. And Haggis says, you're on about the songs that got banned. Well, what about the ones that never did? Slade's song, Far, Far Away. The one line says, I had a red light off the wrist without me even getting kissed. Work that one out for yourself, says Haggis. Thank you for that. And Duncan in Dudley says, a song called Big Seven was banned in the 70s. I'm not sure why. Maybe you could play that and let's see. That'll be by Judge Dredd, won't it? He had Big 6, Big 7, Big 8. I think I know why they were banned, Duncan in Dudley. Cheeky monkey. 18 minutes to 12 on BBC WM.
Have your say. Across the West Midlands, call 08453 009956.
BBC WM 95.6.
Now, a rally's being held later in Cannock to protest against proposed cuts to services for people with learning disabilities. Staffordshire County Council is looking to cut day services in a bid to save money. A final decision will be made next week. Let's speak to Dave, who has a 46-year-old son who's used learning disability services for 25 years. He's on the line now. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, just tell me about the day services that you access then and what losing them might mean.
The day services basically offer people with learning difficulties
an opportunity to be with friends in a safe environment and to make lifelong relationships and enjoy activities that, would be available to most people, but in a much more controlled manner. At the moment, the council are going to cut these services to save money. I'm actually in a rally in Cannock at the moment, a protest rally, where we're trying to get public opinion. It's an awful thing they're planning to do. They are putting money in front of care services, and particularly the councillors in their own report said they can't see the future. They've done a consultation where they preferred option was option 3, which was basically to keep some of the services and the rest go to private. So in their own report, they can't see where these private services have come from. They expect a magic wand of free services to be out there. They're going to remove 70% of the people who attend services. The only people left in there will be multiply handicapped people in wheelchairs and what have you. So it's an appalling thing they're going to do. And their officers have actually, in our opinion, their officers are running the council. They are telling the councillors what's happening. And the reason they're doing that is to save jobs. They're going to put together an organisation of 200 people with 8 layers of management, paying an absorbent amount of money to the top of that service. None of these people will provide any service, but they will provide plenty of jobs for the managers.
Dave, stay there if you would, live from that protest in Cannock. We're going to hear in a moment from Alan White, who's the Cabinet Member for Care at Staffordshire County Council. 11:45, though, let's get this. Time now for the latest travel on BBC WM 95.6 with Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Adrian. It's looking quite slow on the Aston Expressway currently as you head into the city towards Lancaster Circus in particular and round St Chad's. There's a new road layout actually by St Chad's and Snow Hill Queensway near to the train station. Temporary lights as well as work continues on the tram extension, so that could be part of the reason for the congestion. Though, as I say, generally is looking slow on many routes heading into the city through Harborne now as you head towards Harborne Park Road and through Kings Heath along Hagley Road, still spots of congestion as well. Your match day travel, you better get a bit of a rig along. It's a good 3-hour journey as you head down to the south coast for both West Brom and Birmingham fans. The latter going to Brighton via the M40, M25 and M23. Luckily, no problems reported along these roads so far today. Baggies fans going to Southampton on the M40 to the A34 and the M3 as well. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
Here at BBC WM 95.6, we love sport.
That was a great strike from Chris Brunt.
Not only do we give you exclusive live commentaries of your club,
But early shot. Oh, Edwardson, it's there.
The Breakfast Show every weekday morning brings you the latest sports news.
Lee Clark said it's about time they gave the fans something to shout about.
Hear reaction to the weekend's action.
We've been creating a number of chances and sometimes that's just football.
And we'll preview every weeknight game too.
BBC WM 95.6.
That's Pete Morgan at Breakfast, back Monday morning from 6.
And I'll be back on Monday morning at 9. I'll also be back after this show finishes at 12 o'clock, in about 1 second after that, because I'm taking you through till 2 with early kick-off. We're all going down with the lurgy, aren't we? Poor old Daz Hale off with the lurgy. That's why I'm sitting in for early kick-off. And then this morning, poor old Iain Lee going sick whilst on air. But that happened to me very recently here on BBC WM. It doesn't happen very often, but sadly, it does happen. Anyway, I've loved being with you here so far this morning, and we're going to keep it going through till 2. We've just been hearing from Dave. He's at a protest in Cannock. His 46-year-old son has used learning disability services for 25 years, but Staffordshire County Council is looking to cut day services in a bid to save money. We'll hear again from Dave in a moment. I want to speak first, though, to Alan White, who's the Cabinet Member for Care at Staffordshire County Council. Alan, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Very passionate defence of the services that you currently provide from Dave. How can you justify cutting them?
Well, what we're doing is we're changing the way we deliver services for people with learning disabilities. What we'd like to do is base our approach on what people can do rather than what they can't do. And that's giving people the opportunity who can go out into the community and have a good day to be able to do so. We've looked at the evidence. A report called the Social Care Institute for Excellence published a document describing what a good day looks like for people with learning disabilities. And it talks about doing things that have purpose, being in ordinary places amongst the community, doing things that are right for you, receiving support that meets your needs, being in touch with local people, meeting people and developing friendships. And what we feel is that the current day service provision, where people who can get out are currently going into the same building day in, day out, we think that a new approach is a better approach.
So for Dave's son, for example, then, what kind of facility would you provide?
Well, there are services within the community. I'll give you a couple of examples. In the south of Staffordshire, there is something called the Cherry Orchard Gardening Services, where people with learning disabilities go out and do gardens as part of a community interest company. There's an organisation called Sherritt's Wood, which is a farm where people go along and undertake farming, learn about farming in a community setting.
Just so we're clear, though, Alan, these are services that are offered through either independent companies or through charities, won't any longer be provided by the council.
Some services will be provided by the council, but others won't. Individuals will get a personal budget, and we will provide help and support to ensure that those people are able to spend that personal budget in a way that suits them so they can become part of the community.
Dave, what do you say to that?
The community that have a current day service is the real community. This talk of being out in the community is rubbish. They're using it as an excuse. They're talking about picking gardens and things like that. These are isolated services for particular people. The community, the real community, is the base where they are at the moment in day centres. These are where they make real friendships. This talk of community is rubbish. The general public, and it's no disrespect to them, don't know how to handle people with learning disabilities when they meet them. They may politely say to them hello and what have you, but none of those general public is going to say, I'll tell you what, come for a drink with me tonight.
But Dave, Allen's talking about, community interest companies, maybe charities that are set up to help people with learning disabilities.
Yes, I know it is. And if in their own report, the Healthy Staffordshire Committee report, they can't see where any of this is going to come from. They can't foresee the future, and we can't. Their option 3 is for the medium term. And we think it was a pre-decided decision before the consultation.
Alan, is there really the provision out there in Staffordshire to meet the demand that you currently meet as a local authority?
In some parts of Staffordshire there are, and in some parts of Staffordshire we need to give it time to actually develop. And what I hope your other caller can be absolutely certain about is that we won't be doing anything with a day centre and people in day centres until we are certain that there is something for them to do in the community. So there's no rushing into this. There's no predetermination. There is no. This isn't a medium-term objective. What we're doing with learning disabilities isn't a new idea. This has been floating around since 2007, and the fact of the matter is, since 2004, it's been well recognised that people with learning disabilities participating in the community is a good thing. And I just also say about members of the public, I don't think it's right that people with learning disabilities who are members of our society and are members of our community are hidden away in day centres. I think encouraging people to go out into the community and be part of the community, I think, is a good thing. And then it will help the ordinary citizens of Staffordshire and around the country to understand the challenges that people with learning disabilities have and get them integrated into our society.
Alan, thank you. Dave, final comment?
I really object to the phrase being locked away. That's absolute rubbish, and it's the kind of rubbish that the council are peddling. They know nothing about people with learning difficulties and their families. The centres where they're saying they're locked away, they are their real community. That's where they make friends, lifelong relationships. This is the kind of rubbish we're up against with the councils. They don't understand. All they understand is the pounds, shillings and pence. We've put proposals to them that will provide a service much cheaper than the multi-managed service they've got at the moment. We're falling over managers, and the frontline staff are doing a wonderful job in challenging conditions where their jobs are under threat. It's appalling, these lies that they're perpetuating. just to get rid of the service.
OK, Dave, well, thank you for your comments this morning. I can hear your passion. That protest ongoing right now in Cannock. Thanks also to Alan White from Staffordshire County Council. That is a debate I'm sure that will continue over the coming weeks here on BBC WM, and there will be nowhere better to hear and to voice those debates and those comments than on this radio station, the voice of Birmingham and the Black Country. The time now on BBC WM is 7 minutes to 12.
Adrian Goldberg
On BBC WM.
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Interesting comment from Andrew in Northfield. Says Andrew Mitchell should not get his job back in the Cabinet. He himself has not proved to be trustworthy with the general public, has he? It took him weeks to admit his part in it. And to be honest, would you trust people who secretly take meetings with the police? Because as a member of the public, I wouldn't. So no, Andrew Mitchell should not get his job back. As for Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Relax, it's the music you should listen to. It's a great album in its time. Don't get me wrong, I think Frankie Goes to Hollywood Relax is a great bit of music. I'm not saying anything other than that. Well, apart from the fact that it is rude as well, isn't it? Vince says, re George Formby, what I want to know is, while he was leaning on his lamppost, who or what was that certain little lady that he was waiting for? Interesting. Ash in Darlaston says he thinks The Oriental by Status Quo was banned by the BBC. And Dean says he remembers the Gang of Four singing about a pack of three and getting banned for singing about safe sex. Thank you for that, Dean. Lucy's in Winson Green. Hello, Lucy. How are you?
Hi.
Yeah, you want to talk about the bedroom tax with me, yeah?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, go on.
I am the same age as Stephanie, who killed herself. And I've been working now for 12 no, I've been working in the same place for 7 years, and I only worked 12 hours.
Yeah.
And being as I work 12 hours, I'm receiving housing benefit.
Yes.
And I've been living in my house since 1992.
Yeah, and so the rule is, and this is as I understand it, Lucy, so forgive me if this is wrong, but this is what I believe, is that if you have occupied the same home continuously since 1996, which you have, because you say you moved in 1992, and you are of working age...
I am. I'm the same age as that woman that killed herself.
Then apparently you are exempt from the bedroom tax / spare room subsidy.
Well, council has been sending me letters telling me that I need to pay the bedroom tax. And also, I've been trying to downsize, but being as I'm in a joint tenancy with an ex-husband, they will not allow me to downsize either. So they're telling me I need to pay the bedroom tax continuously, even though I've found a property round the corner, and they will not allow me to have the property. They're telling me to go out and look for my ex-husband, for my ex-husband to give me permission. Basically, cut a long story short, they're saying that they need 2 signatures to release me out the house.
And you're no longer with that husband?
No, we was divorced.
Yeah.
In 2004.
Oh dear,
No, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. 2004.
Well, listen, Lucy, this is something I'm going to follow up in my weekday show because I think we need to clarify what the law is around that situation and exactly who is exempt and who isn't. Give us a listen and you can give us a call again in the week between 9 and 12 one of the days, because I think this is clearly something that needs looking into more and a little bit more clarification as well. Let's speak to Marie in Cosley. Hello, Marie, how are you?
Hiya.
Yeah, go on. Nice to speak to you.
Just getting my coat on for a nice ramble down the shops.
Go on, yeah.
Your last subject came on, it's just infuriated me.
Yeah.
The disability thing.
Yeah.
How dare these people make decisions for people that are vulnerable, that they say is in their best interest? I've seen it over the last 30 years, the closing down of day centres, to get them out into the community, which is great for people that want it and are capable, but there are people who are not capable.
And it was really interesting what Andy said, wasn't it? That we talk about getting people out into the community. If you are someone with a severe learning disability, that day centre is your community.
It's your life. And I've seen it over and over again, where they've shut these centres down, where people have had their own community, their own lives. I'll just give you one example. I worked with a lady with Down syndrome. She was a supervisor in her day centre. All it was putting crayons into a box. That was her life, and she was happy. And then it closed down, and they got her a job packing bags in Ulster. Within 6 months, she was dead.
Oh, dear.
How dare these people? Oh, it infuriates me, Adrian. It really does.
Well, tell Marie, in the weekday show, we will follow that story up as well about these proposed day centre closures. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to everybody who's rung in. We've had a pretty lively one, and very good luck as well to Iain Lee, who I'm sure will be back with you next Saturday. I hope he recovers well. Coming up next here on BBCW, we've got some joker presenting early kickoff. Someone who doesn't know how to string two words together. Someone who can barely broadcast. Oh, yeah, that's me. I'll be here in about 30 seconds with early kickoff, previewing the afternoon's football. We've got some great coverage coming up on BBC WM, so stay with us for early kickoff. And thanks to everybody who's given us a call, dropped us a text, sent us an email. Really do appreciate it. Coming up, we've got the news.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
It's 12 o'clock. Hello, my name's Adrian Goldberg. Welcome to Early Kickoff. I'm in for Daz Hale, who has got the lurgy. We're going to be previewing a fantastic afternoon of sport here on